Chapter 141. The blood demon in front of Yiguchen was more than twice the size of the previous rank 4 blood demons. The biggest difference between a rank 5 blood demon and a rank 4 blood demon was that this blood demon's body was covered in blood-red scales. These blood-red scales covered the blood demon's body like a suit of blood-red armor. And this rank 5 blood demon had dozens of blood-red tentacles on its body. Each tentacle was covered with sharp thorns. If an ordinary martial artist were to touch them, they would die without a doubt. As expected of a rank 5 demonic beast. Yiguchen gripped the meteorite soft sword and frowned. The demonic chi emitted by this rank 5 blood demon was comparable to the peak of the divine soul realm. It was even close to a life and death threshold expert. But what caught Yiguchen's attention was that although the blood demon's aura was strong, it was very weak. It gave people the feeling that it was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the blood-red eggs floating in the 10,000 beast blood pool and understood. This blood demon must have already laid eggs. That was why it had lost so much of its blood essence and strength. Let me see how strong a rank 5 demonic beast is. Yiguchen's eyes flashed with a cold light. After entering the elite meeting, he had not used his full strength. Now, he finally had the chance to display his full strength. He also wanted to know what the difference was between him and a rank 5 blood demon. Facing the blood demon, Yiguchen did not dare to hold back. The origin ring on his finger flashed and the calamity dust sword appeared again. Yiguchen used 2 swords at the beginning of the fight. His left hand used the killing move of the Aurora Quick Sword, Dawn Break. His right hand used the ultimate move of the moon-piercing sword art, See Rising Bright Moon. 2 incomparably sharp sword lights, together with the heavenly sun dark fire, stabbed toward the blood demon. Clang! 2 ear-piercing sounds were heard. The calamity dust sword and the meteorite soft sword stabbed the blood demon's blood-red scales, creating sparks. These sword lights were actually unable to destroy the blood demon's blood-red armor. Even the heavenly sun dark fire, which had always been successful, could only sizzle when it landed on the blood-red armor. What a strong defense! Yiguchen's eyes were also filled with surprise. The blood demon armor was probably even stronger than the ice fire dragon lizard's crystal armor. Swoosh! Yiguchen's attack didn't succeed, but the blood demon let out a roar. Numerous blood-colored tentacles with thorns pierced through the air and attacked him. His speed was so fast that only a series of blood-red afterimages could be seen. Yiguchen's gaze turned cold. His pupils were instantly covered by a bloody glow. Eye of the Azura, activate. The moment the Eye of Azura was activated, Yiguchen saw that the blood-red tentacle suddenly slowed down, as if it were moving in slow motion. Of course, this was relative. It was just that Yiguchen's eyesight had become sharper. He used the willow catkin wind movement technique, and his figure flashed between the blood-colored tentacles. He stabbed out with his sword again, bringing with it an extremely sharp fluctuation. His figure turned into a pitch-black afterimage. Shadow Assassin Swordsmanship, Vanishing Shadow. Clang! At the same time, 3 blood-colored tentacles pierced through the air and crashed down on Yiguchen with a force of 10,000 pounds. Protection of all heaven. Yiguchen gritted his teeth. Genuine chi surged out of his golden sea of chi, forming a guardian vajra around his body. As Yiguchen's strength increased, the protection of all heaven's defensive power also increased significantly. However, the one attacking Yiguchen was a 5th-rank blood demon whose strength was close to the life and death threshold. Boom! Boom! 2 blood-colored tentacles smashed into the guardian vajra, shattering it. Then, the 3rd tentacle accurately struck Yiguchen's back. Puchi! Yiguchen's face suddenly flushed red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. On his back, a glaring, bright red wound appeared, and purple venom was spreading from it. Yiguchen's heart trembled. He activated the heavenly sun Xianming fire to burn the venom and flesh. White smoke rose from the wound. Yiguchen took the opportunity to retreat. How troublesome. Yiguchen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand, his eyes cold. If it weren't for his perfect body and the protection of all heaven's defense, he would have died. If it weren't for the fact that the 5th rank blood demon wasn't at its peak, he would have died. Yiguchen wouldn't have been able to survive this attack. Again. Yiguchen vibrated his chi and blood. His perfect body had a strong recovery ability, and the charred wound on his back had already begun to wriggle and heal. Great Thousand Wheel. Yiguchen performed the Great Thousand Sword art, and the trajectories of his sword overlapped, forming an extremely sharp wheel of sword chi that pierced through the air toward the blood demon. Clang! Clang! The Great Thousand Wheel bombarded the blood armor on the blood demon's chest and cut into it slightly, causing cracks to spread on the surface of the blood armor. Hiss! The blood demon went berserk again, and more than 10 blood-colored tentacles seemed to form a giant blood-colored net that enveloped Yiguchen. Yiguchen activated the 360 golden sword veins in his body. In an instant, the power of the sword chi on Yiguchen's 2 swords multiplied. A wisp of vicious and dense blood-red sword chi slowly rose from the 2 long swords. God-slaying sword art, blood slaughter. Yiguchen actually performed blood slaughter with 2 long swords at the same time. With the support of the Great Perfection Sword Vein, the power of bloodthirst had once again skyrocketed to a terrifying level. The 2 blood slaughters tore apart the blood-colored tentacles and bombarded the same spot on the blood demon's chest. Crack! However, with a cracking sound, the incomparably tough blood armor was instantly covered in cracks and then completely shattered. Hiss! The blood demon was furious. Its demonic chi soared into the sky, and many blood-colored tentacles lashed out like giant blood-colored pythons. Boom! 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 Yiguchen's figure flew backward. Although he used the 2 swords to cut off some of the tentacles, some still bombarded his body. Yiguchen vomited blood continuously, and his face turned pale. On the other hand, the blood armor on the blood demon's chest shattered, revealing the soft and sticky body inside. As long as Yiguchen obtained its demonic core, he would be able to completely kill this rank 5 blood demon. Kill! Yiguchen's eyes were cold. In order to obtain the 1000 beast blood pool, he had to kill this rank 5 blood demon, even if he had to pay a price. This rank 5 blood demon seemed to have sensed the danger of death. Some blood-colored demonic patterns gradually appeared on the surface of its bright red body. Demonic beast theurgy. Yiguchen's face darkened slightly. Previously, the rank 4 demonic beast heavenly demonic ape's theurgy had cost him a lot. Although this rank 5 blood demon in front of him was not at its peak, its theurgy was obviously more terrifying. However, in order to improve his strength, Yiguchen had to kill this blood demon. Heaven-splitting sword soul, come out. Yiguchen activated the heaven-splitting sword soul in his body. Streaks of green sword soul burst out from his body, and its power shook the heavens and the earth. The blood demon's demonic chi soared into the sky. Accompanied by many blood-colored tentacles, some blood-red demonic chi chains appeared. The tip of these demonic chi chains was as sharp as the tail of a scorpion. A powerful move was about to be triggered. Chapter 142. The blood-red tentacles, accompanied by chains of demonic aura, pierced through the air. With its powerful penetrating power, it could probably even penetrate through the hardest basalt. Yiguchen activated the heaven-splitting sword soul in his body, and 1000 heaven-splitting sword souls swept out like a flood. Of course, Yiguchen had 10,000 heaven-splitting sword souls in his body, and he had only released 10% of them. The green sword soul seemed to form a green sword chi flood, colliding with the blood demon's demonic beast superpower. Sword chi and demonic aura rampaged, exploding with a deafening sound. The entire blood demon lair was shaking violently. Boom! 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 Several blood-red chains of demonic aura broke through the heaven-splitting sword souls and pierced towards Yiguchen. Yiguchen used his 2 swords to block the attack, but a strong rebounding force was transmitted to Yiguchen's arms along the edge of the swords, causing his arms to become numb. Swoosh! At this moment, a demonic aura chain pierced towards Yiguchen's chest at an extremely fast speed. Even though Yiguchen had activated the Eye of Azura, it was difficult for him to dodge. At this critical moment, the vital ring on Yiguchen's finger flashed again. In an instant, Yiguchen's body was covered with a layer of dazzling crystal armor. The entire surface of the crystal armor was flowing with the power of ice and fire, alternating between crimson and dark blue. It looked extremely strange. This was the low-grade defensive spiritual weapon that the old drunkard had refined for Yiguchen, the ice and fire dragon crystal armor. It was made from the crystal armor of the rank 4 demonic beast, the ice and fire dragon lizard. Even though its defensive power was not as good as the rank 5 blood demon's blood armor, it was not much weaker. In addition, the old drunkard had carved the strengthening and self-healing spiritual tattoos on it, so its defensive power had increased by a large margin. Clang! The attacking demonic aura chain collided with the crystal armor on Yiguchen's chest. Yiguchen felt as if he had been hit by a heavy hammer as he slammed into the rock wall behind him. He coughed out another mouthful of blood. However, compared to being pierced by the demonic chi chains, this was much better. Yiguchen was also very satisfied with the defensive power of the ice and fire dragon crystal armor. He infused his genuine chi into the strengthening spirit tattoo, and the entire surface of the ice and fire dragon crystal armor faintly glowed. It seemed to have become a little stronger. Kill! With the protection of the ice and fire dragon crystal armor, Yiguchen no longer had anything to worry about. His sword moves were fierce and domineering. Even when the crimson tentacles and demonic energy chains hit Yiguchen, they could only injure him, but not cause any fatal damage. With the continuous attacks of the 1,000 heaven-ripping sword souls, the blood demon was forced to retreat. Almost all of its blood-red tentacles were cut off. Even if it could regrow, it was not something that could be done in a short time. Just as Yiguchen was fighting fiercely with the blood demon with all his might, outside the Scarlet Lair, Su Jianchu's beautiful eyes were looking at the lair worriedly. However, from the vibrations coming from inside, Su Jianchu knew that Yiguchen wasn't immediately defeated. He was still able to contend with the blood demon. That silly kid really hid his strength well, Su Jianchu muttered. Luo Cheng, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, had a dark glint in his eyes. In the next moment, Luo Cheng suddenly stood up and wanted to escape. Where do you think you're going? Do you think I'm a pushover? Su Jianchu's reaction was quick. She reached out to grab Luo Cheng. However, Luo Cheng sneered. A cloud of black smoke suddenly spread out from his sleeve, emitting a pungent smell. It's poisonous. Su Jianchu hurriedly retreated. Luo Cheng used the blood illusion steps. His figure drew out a crimson afterimage. He was extremely fast as he flashed into the depths of the forest. Damn it! How dare you trick me? Su Jianchu was extremely vexed. Just as she wanted to chase after Luo Cheng, she thought of Yiguchen in the Scarlet Lair. After comparing the two, Su Jianchu was still worried about Yiguchen. She turned and flew into the blood demon's lair. At this moment, the battle in the blood demon's lair was coming to an end. Although the rank 5 blood demon was powerful, its strength was greatly reduced after laying eggs. At most, it was only slightly stronger than a rank 4 demonic beast. Yiguchen attacked with all his strength. He didn't hold back at all. With the protection of the ice and fire dragon crystal armor, he erupted with his greatest strength. With this, the battle naturally leaned in Yiguchen's favor. God-slaying sword art, soul demon. A dazzling crimson sword ray with a destructive force that could tear through everything slammed into the blood demon's chest. With a loud explosion, a dark red demonic core flew out. Yiguchen grabbed the rank 5 demonic core and threw a ball of heavenly sun mystic underworld fire at the blood demon's body. Boom! The blood demon's body was instantly engulfed by the heavenly sun mystic underworld fire. After Yiguchen obtained the demon pill of the 5th rank demonic beast, he seemed to have heard something. He directly stored the tribulation dust sword and the ice and fire dragon crystal armor into his origin ring. He also stored the 1,000 heaven-ripping sword souls into his body. In just a moment, Su Jianchu's delicate figure flashed in. This, after seeing the mess in the lair, Su Jianchu's eyes widened. She looked at the blood demon's body that had turned into a pool of black pus in disbelief. You killed a rank 5 blood demon? Su Jianchu was in disbelief. She stared at Yi Guqin with wide eyes, looking rather adorable. After laying eggs, this blood demon's strength was greatly reduced. It's not much stronger than a rank 4 demonic beast. I barely managed to kill it. Yi Guqin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He was also heavily injured. Fortunately, he had the perfect body and could recover in a few days. Amazing. I'm getting more and more curious about you. Su Jianchu sized up Yi Guqin. Oh right, what about Luo Cheng? Yi Guqin suddenly asked. Su Jianchu's face fell as she explained the cause and effect. Forget it, it's fine. Yi Guqin didn't mind. He directly threw the 2 blood demons' demonic cores to Su Jianchu. Silly boy, you. Su Jianchu didn't understand. I have enough demonic cores. I'll give these 2 to you. After all, you want to establish the righteous alliance. This is a good opportunity for you to make a name for yourself. Yi Guqin smiled faintly. He couldn't possibly say that he didn't want to be too eye-catching, so he gave the rank 5 demonic cores to her. Yes, that's right. You're indeed worthy of being my vice alliance leader. Su Jianchu naively accepted the 2 blood demons' demonic cores. Okay, next is the myriad beasts' blood pool. Su Jianchu's eyes lit up. Yi Guqin was also interested. He removed the blood demon's demonic eggs from the pool and burned them to ashes. We'll split the myriad beast's blood pool. Su Jianchu said and took out a gourd-shaped spirit tool with spirit runes flashing on its surface. A powerful suction force erupted from the bottle and absorbed a small portion of the myriad beast's blood pool's essence blood. Yi Guqin looked at Su Jianchu in confusion. There was still more than half of the essence blood left in the pool. Su Jianchu curled her lips and said, You killed the blood demons and gave me their demonic cores. Plus, you're so heavily injured. The essence blood in the pool is just enough for you to recover and cultivate. I'll take a small portion. When Yi Guqin heard this, he nodded his head without any hesitation. Yi Guqin said, I've collected most of my demonic cores. I'll be cultivating in the myriad beast's blood pool for a few days. I'll have to trouble you to protect me. Aside from recovering, the most important thing was to cultivate the marrow cleansing scripture. The indestructible diamond body was something Yi Guqin had always been pursuing. It's fine. With me around, no one will be able to disturb your cultivation. Su Jianchu patted her chest confidently. Yi Guqin nodded and sat cross-legged in the myriad beast's blood pool. At this moment, a few hundred miles away from the blood demon's lair, Luo Cheng, who had escaped, was holding his severed arm. His eyes were filled with intense hatred. Dugu Wubai, Su Jianchu, just you wait. I might not be able to deal with you, but there are plenty of people who can. Let me think, if I spread the news of the rank 5 demonic cores and the myriad beast's blood pool, who will come? Luo Cheng's eyes burned with the flames of revenge. Chapter 143. In the blood demon lair, Yi Guqin sat cross-legged in the myriad beast's blood pool. Although Su Jianchu had absorbed a portion of the blood essence, there was still more than half of it left. As time passed, Yi Guqin's injuries were mostly healed. He began to cultivate the marrow cleansing scripture. In his previous life, only one of the top 10 experts, Bodhidharma, had reached the invincible Vajra body. Therefore, it wasn't easy to cultivate it. The heavenly sun Xianming fire appeared on Yi Guqin's body. The surface of the myriad beast's blood pool sizzled and emitted white smoke. The impurities were all evaporated by the strange fire, leaving only the purest blood essence energy. Yi Guqin activated a trace of devouring power in his body. In an instant, The myriad beasts' blood pool formed a blood-colored vortex with Yiguchen as the center. Yiguchen's aura and physical body were also growing slowly in the process of cultivation. Of course, this wasn't something that could be finished in a short time. Su Jianshi was guarding the blood demon lair. She was very bored. At this moment, a piece of news was quietly spreading in the Black Sky mountain range. Hey, have you heard? There's news that Su Jianshi and Dugu Wubai found a blood demon lair and obtained 2 beast cores. One of them was a rank 5 beast core. A rank 5 beast core. How is that possible? Even the number 1 prodigy can't kill it, right? Who knows? But I heard that they ambushed the blood demon while it was laying eggs. How lucky. I heard that in addition to the rank 5 beast core, there's also a myriad beasts blood pool. That's a treasure trove. Some martial artists were talking, but most of them didn't pay much attention to it. They knew that it was difficult for them to compete with Su Jianshi and the others with their strength. However, while ordinary martial artists might think this way, there were some who did not. Roar! In the forest, a beast's miserable howl could be heard. A flaming blade shadow chopped off the head of a rank 3 demonic beast, causing blood to spurt out. A burly man in obsidian armor with a flaming saber in his hand took out a monster pill from the demonic beast's body. This man was the little tyrant of the Qin clan, Qin Badian. Su Jianshi, Dugu Wubai, How can I let the 2 of you monopolize the class 5 Yao core and myriad beast blood pool? It's time to take back the humiliation from that day. Naturally, Qin Badian had also heard of this news. A cold glint shot out from his tiger-like eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled into a vicious smile. With a leap, he directly shot towards a certain direction. In another area, a white-robed, black-haired young man waved his Xianming treasure fan, and a rank 3 demonic beast fell to the ground. If I obtain the class 5 Yao core, I will definitely have a chance to compete for first place in the second stage. The myriad beast blood pool will also be beneficial to me. Last time, Dugu Wubai made me lose face in front of Princess Yuanyang. This time, I will make him pay the price. This young man was naturally the number 1 prodigy of Yuanyang Mansion, Mo Lin. At the same time, a fierce battle was erupting in another area of the mountain range. 4 cultivators at the 7th Revolution Qi Refinement Realm were fighting each other. Swords and sabers crisscrossed as their palms rumbled. Outside the battle, a woman in a tight red dress with a slender figure like a water snake was watching the battle with a charming smile. She had a fox-like face and a pair of seductive eyes that faintly flickered with a red light. If one were to look closely at the cultivators fighting each other, they would notice that 2 of them had eyes that were faintly glowing red. Not long after, the battle ended. The 4 cultivators were heavily injured and fell to the ground. They had almost perished together. The seductive woman in the red dress stepped forward with a smile and easily collected the origin rings of the 4 cultivators that contained their Yao cores. Sigh, what a waste of effort. But I'm a little bored. I heard that Su Jianshi and Dugu Wubai found a blood demon lair. Not only did they obtain a class 5 Yao core, but they also obtained a myriad beast blood pool. Hee, how can I not take advantage of such an opportunity? The seductive woman laughed endlessly. She twisted her waist and turned into a red shadow as she swept away. Anyone who was slightly familiar with this seductive woman would know that she was the number 1 prodigy of the state capital of Qing, Ji Hongmei. As the news spread, the entire Black Sky mountain range seemed to have a vague feeling that a storm was brewing. The one who spread the news was Luo Cheng, who had narrowly escaped death. Ha, you stole my opportunity and severed my blood-hand demon arm. Dugu Wubai, Su Jianshi, Luo Cheng, won't let you have peace. I'll let you fight. In the end, I'll be the one who benefits. Ha! In a hidden canopy, Luo Cheng, who only had 1 arm left, looked in the direction of the blood demon lair from afar. He let out a carefree smile as if he was taking revenge. At this moment, outside the blood demon lair, Su Jianshi was bored to death. After obtaining 2 blood demon cores, Su Jianshi had no intention of killing any more Yao beasts. how many more days is this silly kid going to cultivate in seclusion? Su Jianzhi was a little frustrated. She grabbed a wild flower by the lair and plucked its petals out of boredom. Although the wait was a little long, Su Jianzhi didn't disturb Yiguchen. Instead, she guarded outside the lair. At this moment, Su Jianzhi seemed to have sensed something. She threw away the petals and stood up. Her beautiful eyes stared into the distance. A figure slowly walked out from the dense vines in the distance. When the figure walked closer, Su Jianzhi's expression changed slightly. "It's you, evil tyrant." That figure was none other than Qin Badian. Qin Baishan's eyes lit up when he saw Su Jianzhi again. Although Dugu Wubai and Su Jianzhi had grudges with him, Qin Badian still coveted Su Jianzhi more than he hated her. "Ha, little girl, we meet again." Qin Badian laughed. "Evil tyrant, how did you know about this place? Could it be?" Su Jianzhi had just opened her mouth when she realized something. She gritted her teeth and stomped her feet. "Luo Cheng, that bastard." Su Jianzhi was smart. How could she not understand the cause and effect? "If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have held back." Su Jianzhi was a little regretful. After all, she was still a pure and kind girl. It was difficult for her to casually kill someone. Yiguchen didn't care about killing Luo Cheng, so Su Jianzhi didn't make a move. She didn't expect to attract so much trouble. "Ha, it's really here." However, before Su Jianzhi could come up with a plan, another sinister voice sounded. "It's you." Su Jianzhi's expression changed again when she saw who it was. It was Imo Lin, who she had a grudge with not long ago. "Ha, I didn't expect this place to be so lively. Am I late?" A bone-numbing voice suddenly sounded. Immediately, a red figure, accompanied by a wave of fragrant wind, landed in this place. Su Jianzhi's expression turned even uglier. She bit her lips and clenched her fists. Chapter 144. The red figure landed on the ground. It was a seductive beauty. "It's you, the #1 prodigy of the state of Qing, Demoness Ji Hongmei." Mo Lin's expression changed. Mo Lin and Qin Baishan's hearts skipped a beat when they saw Ji Hongmei. Ji Hongmei was the true #1 prodigy and had reached the 9th refinement stage. Rumor had it that Ji Hongmei was called the Demoness because she was proficient in illusions. She could unknowingly make people fall for her tricks. Although Mo Lin was also the #1 prodigy of the Yuanyang prefecture, he was weaker than the other prodigies. As for Qin Badian, he was about the same as Mo Lin. Although they were wary of Ji Hongmei, they weren't afraid of her. "This place is so lively. Are the two of you here to seek opportunities?" Ji Hongmei's voice was so soft that it could make one's heart itch. Mo Lin and Qin Badian felt their bones going soft. However, they were still prodigies after all and immediately regained their senses. "Ha, isn't it too early to talk about fortune? Don't you see someone blocking the way? Perhaps Dugu Wubai has already begun refining the myriad beast blood pool in his lair," Molin said in a gloomy tone. Ji Hongmei looked at Su Jianzhi with her enchanting eyes. Obviously, they had to get past Su Jianzhi if they wanted to obtain an opportunity. "Little sister Su Jianzhi, I've long heard of your name. You're a dark horse that's comparable to the #1 prodigy. You're indeed extraordinary." Ji Hongmei smiled seductively. "What do you want? If you leave now, I can pretend that I didn't see you." Su Jianzhi gritted her teeth and looked at the three of them. "Su Jianzhi, you're too naive." Mo Lin smiled coldly. "Little girl, we can leave, but before we leave, we have to enter the blood demon lair to take a look." Qin Badian smiled. Obviously, Qin Badian, Mo Lin, and Ji Hongmei had a tacit understanding. They would first obtain an opportunity before deciding who would belong to whom. Su Jianzhi's expression changed slightly when she heard that. Yiguchen was still cultivating in the blood demon lair and couldn't be disturbed. Su Jianzhi naturally wouldn't let them enter. If you want to enter, you'll have to get past me first. Su Jianshi clenched her teeth and a sword flashed in her hand. The green cicada sword appeared in her hand and she pointed it at Qin Baishan's group. See, as expected, that Dugu Wu Bai is definitely cultivating in the myriad beast blood pool, and the rank 5 blood demons Yao Kor might be in his possession as well. A cold light shot out from Molin's eyes. Hee, my good little sister, obediently step aside and you'll suffer less. Otherwise, if you fall into the hands of these two men, TSK, that wouldn't be pleasant. Ji Hongmei seemed to be implying something as she smiled ambiguously. When Mo Lin and Qin Badian heard this, their eyes lit up. This was especially true for Molin. He had been blinded by his hatred. Now that he looked at Su Jianshi, he found her youthful beauty to be very alluring. Feeling Qin Badian and Mo Lin's gazes crawling on her like caterpillars, Su Jianshi got goosebumps. Shameless person. Su Jianshi's mind was as pure as a piece of paper. How could she endure such humiliation? She drew her sword and stabbed at the three of them. My good little sister, you have courage. I admire you. Ji Hongmei smiled when she saw Su Jianshi charging over. Red light circulated in her eyes as if she was about to cast an illusion. Su Jianshi's sword froze. But before Ji Hongmei could rejoice, Su Jianshi regained her senses. How is this possible? You're immune to my illusion. Ji Hongmei was slightly shocked. But how could she know that Su Jianshi was someone with the enlightened sword heart? Her mind was as clear as a mirror, and it was difficult for her to be affected by illusions. This was one of the benefits of the enlightened sword heart. However, after a brief moment of surprise, Ji Hongmei did not hesitate. Instead, she waved her jade-like hand and a scarlet whip appeared. Putting illusions aside, Ji Hongmei was still the #1 genius of a prefecture. She had many tricks up her sleeves. Clang! Su Jianshi's azure cicada sword clashed with Ji Hongmei's whip, causing sparks to fly. Let's go. On the other side, Mo Lin and Qin Baishan's eyes flickered. They were about to enter the blood demon nest. Don't even think about it. Su Jianshi saw this from the corner of her eyes. She immediately pulled back her sword and retreated. She stepped on the ground and moved like a graceful swan. She flashed and stood in front of Mo Lin and Qin Badian. Little girl, are you really going to stop all three of us? Qin Baishan's gaze sank. I've said it before. With me here, none of you will be able to disturb the Dugu Wu Bai. Su Jianshi's gaze was firm. True energy surged from her sword. It was as if she was the only one who could stop all of them. Alright, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Qin Badian took out his blazing war saber. Flames rose from the blade and a blazing saber aura spread out. Mo Lin activated the mysterious nether treasure fan in his hand and a chilling aura spread out. Ji Hongmei also stepped forward with the aura of the 9th cycle of qi refinement. The three geniuses attacked at the same time. In the darkness of the forest, Luo Chen coldly looked at the scene in the distance. He was the one who had caused all of this. Let's fight. The more miserable the fight, the better. I will be the one to obtain the fortuitous opportunity in the end. Luo Chen laughed heartily, as if he was venting all the resentment in his heart. At this moment, a sky surveyor's spiritual eye had arrived and captured the scene of Su Jianshi and the others. The scene in the periphery of the mountain range had attracted everyone's attention. That's Su Jianshi. She's being surrounded by three geniuses. Ji Hongmei, Qin Badian, and Mo Lin are all geniuses. Are they going to attack Su Jianshi at the same time? That's too despicable. Who knows? Maybe Su Jianshi has obtained something that will make them jealous. What a pity. Su Jianshi is a true dark horse. She's comparable to the #1 genius. Will she fall in the second stage? The 7 major forces and numerous martial artists were closely watching the battle on the void light screen. Boom! 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 Outside the blood demon lair, the battle had already begun. Su Jianshi alone blocked the attacks of 3 geniuses. Boom! After another attack, Su Jianshi's figure retreated, her face pale. Although her cultivation wasn't bad, it was still very difficult for her to face 3 geniuses at the same time. Little sister, back off. I pity you. Although Ji Hongmei said that, her attacks were even more vicious. A long whip lashed at Su Jianshi like a venomous snake. Su Jianshi blocked with her sword again, but Mo Lin's Xianming fan pierced through the air. She leaned to the side to block, but Qin Baishan's flaming saber slashed at her from the other side. Su Jianshi gritted her teeth and barely dodged. A wisp of flaming saber energy tore the cloth on Su Jianshi's arm, leaving a charred scar on her jade-like arm. Su Jianshi's face turned pale. Chapter 145. Puqi. The 3 prodigies attacked at the same time. Su Jianshi's body was pushed back, and blood seeped out of her mouth. However, she had no intention of moving aside. Humph, stubborn. Mo Lin's eyes were as cold as ice. He struck out with his palm once again. A chilly wind howled and frosty frost swept through the air. It was a spiritual martial art, 9 deadly chilling wind palm. At the same time, Qin Badian and Ji Hongmei attacked. Qin Badian infused his true qi into his flaming saber, and the saber flowed with dazzling flames. Flaming saber slash. Ji Hongmei's whip tore through the air with an ear-piercing screech. A crafty and vicious whip shadow flew towards Su Jianshi. Phoenix Spirit Sword Art, 1000 Feathers Sky Phoenix. Su Jianshi gritted her teeth and held the green cicada sword. Countless strands of sword chi gushed out from the sword, forming an azure phoenix in the air. It attacked the 3 prodigies. Bang! An explosion shook the heavens and earth. The surrounding ground was torn apart, and a 3-meter-deep fissure appeared. As the dust settled, Su Jianshi's body flew out like a kite with a broken string. She slammed into the mountain wall next to the nest. Puqi. Su Jianshi spat out another mouthful of blood, and her face turned even paler. On the other side, the 3 heavens favorites stepped back as well. They were somewhat affected. This girl is quite capable. Qin Baishan's eyes dimmed. Even with the 3 prodigies working together, they couldn't stop Su Jianshi in a short time. If we delay, things will change. If we let Dugu Wubai refine the myriad beast blood pool, we won't even get the leftovers, Mo Lin said coldly. Ha, that's right. Let's finish this quickly. Otherwise, all our efforts will be in vain. Ji Hongmei smiled, but there was coldness in her eyes. Her true personality wasn't as charming as she appeared on the surface. One had to know that Ji Hongmei was known as a demoness, which was enough to show her character. Cough. I already said that as long as I'm here, don't even think about entering. Su Jianshi's voice was weak, but she still forced herself to be spirited. She tightened her grip on her sword. Go! The 3 prodigies didn't waste any words. They just wanted to deal with Su Jianshi and enter the nest to seize the fortune. Boom! 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 Continuous explosions resounded as Su Jianshi's sword shadows clashed with the 3's techniques. Sword energies, palm winds, whip shadows, and saber energies crisscrossed and exploded without end. Under the surveillance of the sky surveying spiritual eyes, all of this was clearly displayed to the outside world. Although they despised the actions of Qin Batian and the other 2, no one could deny that the rules of this stage were as such. What a pity, a dark horse. On the sword sect's side, Elder Qing he shook his head regretfully. He'd naturally noticed that Su Jianshi possessed the enlightened sword heart. Such a rare natural talent could only be chanced upon by luck. The sword sect's Talon naturally wanted to take him under his wing. It's indeed a pity, said Chu Qingqi. However, he then thought of Dugu Wubai. I hope his luck is a little better. Chu Qingqi sighed. While the crowd outside the mountain range was feeling indignant for Su Jianshi, the battle outside the Crimson Nest had reached its most intense level. At this moment, Su Jianshi was covered in blood with wounds all over her body. One could even see the ghastly wounds on her fair thighs through her torn skirt. "Good sister, you're already at the end of your rope. Do you still want to resist?" Ji Hongmei smiled and looked at Su Jianshi with a mocking gaze. It was as if she was looking at a beast in a desperate situation. Qin Badian still coveted Su Jianshi, so he said, "Girl, no matter how stubborn you are, you'll still lose your life. I don't want to kill someone as beautiful as you." Shameless person. "Come at me if you want to kill me. I'm not afraid." Su Jianshi shouted and gathered all her true qi. A terrifying wave of sword energy was emitted from the green cicada sword. Be careful. Don't give her any chance." Mo Lin suddenly felt a sense of danger when he saw this, and he immediately shouted out. The three prodigies attacked again. Frost Palm, Scorching Sun Saber Art, Flame Dragon Strike, Nine Snake Demonic Whip. The three prodigies attacked, wanting to kill Su Jianshi in one fell swoop. At this moment, Su Jianshi's sword heart was enlightened. She held the green cicada sword with both hands and sword energy seemed to be gushing out from her eyes. Phoenix Spirit Sword Art, Myriad Feather Divine Wind. Along with Su Jianshi's shout, countless rays of sword light shot out like a myriad of sword feathers and swept through the world. This is. When Su Jianshi used this sword technique, the elders of the 7 major factions were shocked. The ultimate move of a spirit sword art. Su Jianshi has actually cultivated a spirit sword art to greater mastery. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. Cultivating a spirit sword art to lesser mastery was the standard for a prodigy of the sword. It was even more difficult to cultivate it to greater mastery. Even prodigies would find it difficult to cultivate it to greater mastery. But Su Jianshi had succeeded. Thousands of sword feathers tore through the sky and earth, destroying the surrounding space. Boom! The two ultimate moves collided, shaking the heavens and earth. Even the sturdy blood demon nest trembled. The ground outside the nest had been torn apart and was in a complete mess. The surrounding trees had collapsed as if they had been trampled by a giant beast. Puchi! Su Jianshi's body was impacted. Her chest felt as if it had been hit by a hammer. Ji Hongmei's whip pierced through her thigh, leaving behind a bloody hole. Her body slammed heavily into the ground. Of course, Qin Badian and the others didn't have it easy either. The ultimate move of a spirit sword art was extraordinary. Mo Lin's shoulder was pierced through by the sword feathers. Blood flowed out non-stop. Qin Badian had the obsidian armor to protect him, so he was fine. He was only hit by the sword aura and spat out blood. As for Ji Hongmei, she was slashed by the sword feathers. What made her even crazier was that her face was also covered with 3 or 4 sword scars. "Ah, my face. Su Jianshi, I'm going to kill you." Ji Hongmei's expression changed. She was no longer smiling. Her face twisted as if someone had touched her reverse scale. Ji Hongmei dashed forward and waved her whip. Every move was fatal. Su Jianshi clenched her teeth and gathered the last bit of true qi in her body to block the attack. Pa! The whip knocked the green cicada sword aside and landed on Su Jianshi's body, leaving behind a ghastly wound. Die! 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 Ji Hongmei went completely crazy. As a demoness, her charm was unparalleled and she valued her appearance the most. Yet, at this moment, there was a bloody scar on her face. This was absolutely unacceptable to her. The whip flashed and Su Jianshi couldn't block it. She was heavily injured. She spat out blood and her face was pale. Her green dress was torn in many places. Whip scars crisscrossed against her fair skin. It was a frightening sight. It was like a blue bird covered in cuts and bruises and stained with blood. Meanwhile, in the blood demon lair, Yiguchin's cultivation had also reached the final stage. Chapter 146. Inside the blood demon nest, inside the thousand beast blood pool. The thousand beast blood pool, which originally had more than half of it left, was now almost empty. Yiguchin was sitting in the middle with his legs crossed. His aura seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. The thousand beast blood pool was filled with life essence. After being refined by the heavenly sun Xianming fire, it could be converted into the purest true qi. At a certain moment, Yiguchin suddenly opened his eyes. There was a cold glint in his eyes. Qi refinement 8th revolution, break. Boom. A powerful true qi spread out from Yiguchin's body. At this moment, Yiguchin's cultivation had also risen to the qi refinement 8th revolution with the help of the thousand beast blood pool's essence blood. But this wasn't enough. Yiguchin's origin ring flashed as he took out a fiery red fruit covered in dragon scale-like patterns. It was the burning dragon fruit he had obtained from the auction in Donglin Prefecture's Cloud Sky City. Without any hesitation, Yiguchin swallowed the burning dragon fruit. A powerful and scorching energy erupted from his body. Together with the scorching power of refinement, it began to refine Yiguchin's organs. With the help of the thousand beast blood pool and the burning dragon fruit, Yiguchin's cultivation of the marrow cleansing scripture sped up. With Yiguchin's sharp spiritual sense, he naturally knew that something had happened outside the nest. But he couldn't stop now. Otherwise, all his efforts would be in vain. This time, he had to completely cultivate the marrow cleansing scripture. Outside the nest, Su Jianchu's mouth was stained with blood. Her body was covered in whip marks. But Ji Hongmei didn't immediately kill her. Instead, she had a perverted expression on her face as she toyed with Su Jianchu like a cat toying with a mouse. Su Jianchu's body was covered in bloody whip marks. It was a shocking sight. Even Mo Lin and Qin Badian, who were watching from the side, felt their hair stand on end. They sighed inwardly. Ji Hongmei truly lived up to her reputation as a demoness. My good sister, you've angered me. So, I'll make you wish you were dead. Ji Hongmei touched the wound on her face with one hand and smiled like a vicious snake beauty. Her tone was sharp and vicious. The people watching through the heaven-surveying spiritual eyes felt pity for him, but at the same time, they were also puzzled. Su Jianchu knew that it was hard for her to win against the three of them, so why was she still persisting? Could it be that Su Jianchu is guarding the blood demon lair? Some people suddenly guessed. After this reminder, everyone was enlightened. Su Jianchu didn't want to leave because she wanted to guard the cave. Someone should be cultivating in seclusion in the lair. The only person who was close to Su Jianchu was Dugu Wubai. TSK, to have such a beautiful woman, I really envy that Dugu Wubai. Many martial artists sighed. Dugu Wubai could be considered extremely lucky to have such a stunning beauty protect him with her life. At this moment, inside the blood demon lair, Yiguchin's skin was covered in a layer of golden radiance. If one were to look into Yiguchin's body, they would find that his internal organs were like golden crystals. They were transparent and had a jade-like texture. The body metamorphosis scripture cultivated the muscles, bones, and skin, while the marrow cleansing scripture cultivated the internal organs. Obviously, this was a sign that the marrow cleansing scripture was about to be completed. Crack, at a certain moment, the sound of porcelain shattering came from Yiguchin's body. Then, Yiguchin's internal organs suddenly emitted a resplendent brilliance. It was as if they weren't organs of flesh and blood, but precious stones and jade. Yiguchin stood up, and a powerful fluctuation swept out in all directions. His body also emitted a resplendent brilliance. The marrow cleansing scripture had been cultivated to greater success. Within Yiguchin's body, there was a cracking sound that sounded like a dragon twisting. It was the sound of bones that were forged to be as hard as diamonds and gems. At the same time, Yiguchin raised his hand and clenched his fist slightly. A terrifying force spread through the flesh and blood of his arm. He suddenly punched out and bombarded the hard rock wall beside him. Boom! It was as if he had punched into tofu. Yiguchin's entire arms sank into the rock wall. Yiguchin didn't feel anything at all. Is this the marrow cleansing scripture after reaching greater success? Yiguchin felt that his blood and chi were like dragons in his body. His blood and chi had never been so vigorous. With a perfect body, the body metamorphosis scripture, and the marrow cleansing scripture, Yiguchin's current body was terrifyingly strong. Unfortunately, although the marrow cleansing scripture has been cultivated to greater success, it will still take some time to merge it with the body metamorphosis scripture and cultivate the legendary indestructible Vajra body. Yiguchin sighed softly. The two body refinement techniques had been cultivated to greater success. Next, he just needed to merge them and some opportunities to cultivate the legendary indestructible Vajra body that only first ancestor Bodhidharma had achieved. Although I haven't cultivated the indestructible Vajra body yet, the marrow cleansing scripture has been cultivated to greater success. It will only take some time and opportunities to reach that step. Moreover, my cultivation realm has increased by a small level. Yiguchin muttered to himself. He was already very satisfied with this cultivation. As for the indestructible Vajra body, Yiguchin had a feeling that he wouldn't need too long to reach that realm. Now, let's go out. Yiguchin looked at the cave entrance in the distance and frowned. A faint sense of unease rose in his heart. His figure flickered as he dashed out. At this moment, outside the bloody cave, Su Jianshi was in an extremely sorry state. Her body was covered in blood and whip marks. Her aura was extremely weak. Even though she was a proud daughter of the heavens, she couldn't withstand the continuous attacks of the three great prodigies. Ji Hongmei, don't delay any longer. Finish her off. Mo Lin frowned. He was also a little disgusted by Ji Hongmei's bad taste. On the other side, Qin Badian looked regretfully at Su Jianshi, who was covered in blood. Such a beautiful girl had been tortured to such a state by Ji Hongmei. He had no interest in coveting her. Humph, my good sister, you can die now. Ji Hongmei seemed to have gotten tired of playing. She sneered and swung a whip with powerful true qi at Su Jianshi's head. Su Jianshi gathered the last of her true qi and blocked with her sword. Bang! Su Jianshi spat out a mouthful of blood. Her jade-like arms felt like they were about to break. The green cicada sword was sent flying. Her delicate body flew backward. Just as she was about to hit a rock, she was suddenly caught by a figure and knocked into his embrace. Su Jianshi looked up with difficulty and saw that familiar and ordinary face. Silly. Silly boy, you're finally out, Su Jianshi said weakly. When Yiguchin came out of the cave, he saw the bloodied Su Jianshi flying out. When he saw the shocking whip marks all over Su Jianshi's body, even the usually calm Yiguchin was shaken. His hands trembled. He was the soul of the sword demon. It was rare for his emotions to fluctuate. However, when he saw Su Jianshi covered in blood, Yiguchin couldn't calm down. Why didn't you leave? Yiguchin asked with difficulty. Silly boy, I'm the leader of the Righteous Alliance, heroine Su Jianshi. Of course. I have to protect you. Su Jianshi smiled. Her blood-stained smile was so dazzling in Yiguchin's eyes. It was all to protect him. Yiguchin felt the flames of Azura burning in his heart. Yiguchin took a deep breath and said indifferently, then leave the rest to me. However, the calmer he was, the more it represented Yiguchin's killing intent. It was like a surging undercurrent. Okay. Su Jianshi responded weakly. She couldn't hold on any longer and fainted. Yiguchin gently placed Su Jianshi on the ground. Then, he looked at Ji Hongmei and the other two. When he saw the bloodied whip in Ji Hongmei's hand, Yiguchin could no longer suppress his anger. Clang! The meteorite sword was unsheathed. Sword energy filled the sky. Yiguchin's murderous aura exploded and surged into the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. If the three of you can leave this place alive, Duga Wubai, will kill myself. With that, the weather changed and heaven and earth trembled. Chapter 147. Yiguchin's black hair fluttered in the wind as a layer of blood-red light seemed to emanate from his eyes. The terrifying aura of an 8th-rank Qi refinement cultivator was released. His body rumbled as if an angry dragon had awakened. His cold words were like the judgment of an Asura descending from hell. This, feeling Dugu Wubai's powerful aura, Ji Hongmei and the other two's expressions changed, especially Mo Lin and Qin Badian. Clearly, in their eyes, Yiguchin's cultivation was much stronger than before. This kid must have refined the myriad beast blood pool's fortuitous encounter. Mo Lin's expression was unsightly. You want to keep all three of us alive? Don't talk big. Qin Baishan's expression was also unsightly, but he still said firmly. In his opinion, even if Yiguchin's strength had increased, it would be difficult for him to fight all three of them at once. Yiguchin did not say anything. His gaze first locked onto Ji Hongmei. Looking at the blood-stained whip, it was clear that most of the whip wounds on Su Jianchu's body were caused by this seductive woman. I was wondering who it was. So it's Dugu Wubai. Su Jianchu injured my face, so what's wrong with giving her some punishment? Ji Hongmei touched her face with heartache as she looked at Yiguchin. A red glow flickered in her enchanting eyes. Clearly, Ji Hongmei was using an illusion. Yiguchin's body shook slightly. Just as Ji Hongmei revealed a smug expression, her eyes went blank. Because Yiguchin's pair of ink-black eyes had been swallowed by the extremely dense blood-red color in an instant. Eye of Azura, activate. Terrifying illusions appeared one after another in Ji Hongmei's mind. All sorts of cruel scenes appeared in Ji Hongmei's mind. Ah! Ji Hongmei suddenly covered her head with her hands and shrieked. Punishment, is it? I'll let you have a taste of punishment too. Yiguchin's lips curled into a cold smile. His footsteps flashed, and he appeared in front of Ji Hongmei almost instantly. Whoosh! A wisp of blood-red sword light shot out. It was like an Asura had unsheathed his sword and intended to slash the heavens. Ji Hongmei bit the tip of her tongue. The sharp pain woke her up, and she saw the sword light approaching her. As soon as she raised her whip, a blood-red sword light flashed. Ah, my hand! Ji Hongmei's face paled as she screamed. Her hand that was holding the whip had been cut off at the wrist by Yiguchin's sword. Blood splattered, and the severed hand was sent flying. Yiguchin's eyes were cold and sharp. He was like the Asura Grim Reaper, seeking vengeance with the methods of hell. Sword light swirled around his hand as he performed the golden snake sword art. Streaks of sword light streaked across Ji Hongmei's face. In just a single breath, Yiguchin had slashed out more than 40 times. My face! Ah, my face! Ji Hongmei retreated quickly, but she felt a lot of liquid flowing down her face. It was fresh blood. She used her remaining hand to touch her cheek, only to feel the crisscrossing scars. Ji Hongmei's charming face was covered in sword scars. Her entire face had been destroyed by Yiguchin. Ah, no, this servant's face, this servant's beauty. Ji Hongmei's face was distorted. Together with her disfigured face, she looked as terrifying as a ghost from hell. Yiguchin held the falling star flexible sword in his hand. Drops of blood gathered on the blade and dripped down along the blade. Qin Batian and Mo Lin felt a chill in their hearts when they saw Ji Hongmei's face covered in blood. Yiguchin's black robe was stained with blood. His face was expressionless, and his blood-red eyes were like an Asura from hell as he stared at the three of them. Perhaps he wasn't bragging. Qin Batian suddenly thought. Qin Batian, hurry up and attack with all your might. Otherwise, we won't be able to escape today. Mo Lin suddenly shouted from the other side. After witnessing Yiguchin's terrifying means, Mo Lin also felt a chill in his heart. He knew that if it wasn't Yiguchin who would die today, it would be them. Kill! Qin Badian and Mo Lin no longer dared to hold back. They could vaguely sense that Yi Guqin was truly enraged at this moment. The three of them had crossed Yi Guqin's bottom line. Scorching Sun Saber Art, Blazing Dragon Strike. Qin Baishan's flaming true energy gushed out and spread towards the blazing battle saber. Blazing flames soared into the sky, as if a fire dragon was roaring in the sky. It was obvious that Qin Baishan's true strength was extraordinary, and he wasn't much weaker than those top geniuses. Boom! He slashed his saber at Yi Guqin, and a fire dragon swept across. Yi Guqin's blood-red eyes were indifferent. He didn't even dodge, as if he didn't see it. Qin Badian was delighted. However, before his smile could fully spread, it completely froze. Yi Guqin slowly stretched out his hand, and the heavenly sun Xianming fire gushed out and wrapped around his palm. Like the hand of a fire god, he directly caught the incoming blazing battle saber. Bang! The blazing battle saber's ferocious attack came to an abrupt halt in Yi Guqin's hand. This, Qin Badian and Mo Lin were stunned. Even Ji Hongmei, who was in a frenzy, was slightly stunned. What did they just see? Catching a spiritual weapon with his bare hands? Although Qin Baishan's blazing battle saber was only a low-grade spiritual weapon, it wasn't something that could be stopped with one hand. How is this possible? How can your physical body be more terrifying than a demonic beast's? Qin Badian was really stunned, and he couldn't react in time. Yi Guqin's lips curled into a cold smile. He had a perfect physical body, and with the greater success of the tendon-changing scripture and marrow-cleansing scripture, he could still catch a low-grade spiritual weapon with his bare hands. Yi Guqin suddenly clenched his fist. Crack! A terrifying dragon-elephant force exploded, and cracks started to appear on the blazing battle saber. Impossible! Qin Badian roared. Nothing is impossible. Yi Guqin's eyes were cold, and he directly kicked Qin Baishan's chest. Bang! Qin Badian spat out a mouthful of blood. Even with the protection of the obsidian battle armor, he felt as if he was being crushed by an ancient elephant, and several of his ribs were broken. Yi Guqin threw the blazing battle saber at Qin Badian, and with a sharp whistle, the saber slammed into Qin Baishan's chest. Boom! Qin Baishan's body shook again, and even cracks started to appear on his obsidian battle armor. The blazing battle saber directly slammed Qin Baishan's body into the ground, causing cracks to appear on the ground. Dead silence. Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin looked at Yi Guqin in shock, as if they were looking at a monster. Although Qin Badian was still a distance away from Qin Aoshi, Shintu Miao, and the rest, he was still a true genius. However, in the hands of Yi Guqin, he was in such a sorry state, lying in the pit like a dead dog. We must kill him. If he continues to hide, we will all die today. Mo Lin was truly frightened. He had always been conceited, and thought that he was comparable to the #1 genius. However, after seeing the Azura like Yi Guqin, he finally understood how laughable he was. There was also Ji Hongmei. Although she had sunk into madness after her face was destroyed, after seeing the Azura like Yi Guqin, her heart felt as if it had fallen into an ice cave, and she felt a bone-chilling chill. Chapter 148. At this moment, there was a suffocating silence in the periphery of the mountain range. Yi Guqin's powerful attack, destroying Ji Hongmei's face, and severely injuring Qin Badian were all projected to the periphery through the sky surveying spiritual eyes. Shock, astonishment, disbelief. All kinds of emotions appeared on the faces of the warriors from the 7 major forces. Is this really the Duga Wubai from the first stage? Some of the spectators were dumbfounded and could not believe it. Qin family's little overlord, Qin Badian, was severely injured in just a few moves. Yi Guqin even caught the spiritual inscription weapon with his bare hands. All of this made the warriors extremely shocked. Not only is this kid's swordsmanship extraordinary, but his physical body is also incomparably strong. If not for the fact that he doesn't have the aura of a demonic beast, I would really suspect that he is a demonic beast in human form. Elder Qing He of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was also shocked. Yi Guqin's swordsmanship had already exceeded his expectations, but he did not expect his physical body to be so abnormal as well. If we can recruit this kid, it doesn't matter even if Sword Sect's Yi Guqin doesn't come. This kid's talent and cultivation are definitely not inferior to Yi Guqin's. Elder Qing He sighed. At the same time, he was slightly dissatisfied with Yi Guqin who did not come. Compared to Yi Guqin who did not even come, Elder Qing He was obviously more inclined to recruit this youth called Dugu Wubai. Hearing this, Chu Qingqi could only smile bitterly. He believed that if Yi Guqin really came, he would definitely be as stunning as Dugu Wubai. On the other side, Lu Tianying of the Limitless Sword Sect had an extremely ugly expression. He was about to cry for his parents. You bastard, you almost missed out on such a good talent. No matter the price, we must recruit this person into our Limitless Sword Sect. Zhao Jingting's tone was extremely determined. Previously, he only intended to recruit Yi Guqin. After seeing the scene just now, Zhao Jingting made up his mind to recruit Yi Guqin. If I can really rope this kid in, I'm afraid he'll be another monstrous sword genius that won't be inferior to Xian Hao in the future, Zhao Jingting thought to himself. Hee, it's a pity that this Dugu Wubai is a man. Otherwise, my Consonance Palace would want him to join as well. Who said so? Sister, we can make an exception. Although this Dugu Wubai looks a little ordinary, his talent is truly extraordinary. Over in the direction of the Consonance Divine Palace, a charming young girl laughed, her eyes shining with a brilliant light. At this moment, because of a single Yi Guqin, the undercurrents of the 7 great powers were surging, and their minds were racing. Could it be that this Dugu Wubai wants to? However, after seeing Yi Guqin's performance, the life and death chamber elder in charge of monitoring faintly furrowed his brows even though he was stunned. After which, he said, Quick, send someone over. I'm afraid that Dugu Wubai wants to kill these 3. What? As soon as these words came out, it caused another uproar. Among these 3 people, Mo Lin was from the Mo family in the Yuanyang Prefecture, Qin Batian was from the Qin family in the Donglin Prefecture, and Ji Hongmei was from the Spring Cloud Pavilion in the state capital of Qing. Although they couldn't be compared to the 7 great powers, they were still at the level of super families. This Dugu Wubai actually dared to kill these 3 people in front of everyone? Many people were shocked and couldn't believe it. If Yi Guqin really did so, his name would definitely spread throughout the Saint Origin dynasty. Of course, it would also provoke the terrifying revenge of the 3 great powers. But would Yi Guqin be afraid? In the mountain range, Yi Guqin's face was indifferent, like a killing god that disregarded all living beings. He glanced at the sky surveying spiritual eye in midair and knew in his heart. If he continued to delay and waited for reinforcements, it would be impossible for him to kill these 3 people. As for the consequences of killing these 3 people, Yi Guqin didn't care. The sword demon had never been afraid of anything in his life. If he had to kill, he would kill. With a sword in his hand, he didn't ask the heavens and earth, but only his own heart. God-slaying sword art, blood slaughter. Yi Guqin's golden true energy gushed out. The vigorous aura made Yi Guqin look like a golden god of war. The sword in his hand was like an azura. The color of blood condensed, and a boundless sword energy fluctuation spread out. With a slash of the sword, blood slaughter. Bang! Mo Lin and Ji Hongmei attacked at the same time, using their ultimate moves. Heavenly Cold Mysterious Energy. Demon Buster Whip. 2 equally powerful waves spread out, and the strong moves collided with Yi Guqin's sword move, causing an earth-shattering roar. However, the result of this attack was puff. Mo Lin and Ji Hongmei retreated at the same time, spitting out blood. On the other hand, Yi Guqin also retreated more than 10 steps. His arms were trembling, and his blood was churning. However, he didn't suffer any serious injuries. Is this Dugu Wubai really a demonic beast? Mo Lin's hands trembled violently as a powerful rebounding force caused his arms to emit the sound of bones cracking. On the other side, Ji Hongmei wasn't in a good state either. Not only was she mentally unstable, but she was also injured. The three of them had already been injured by Su Jianshir's Spirit Sword Art's ultimate move. Now that they were facing Ye Guqin, who was in his peak condition, they paled in comparison. After all, Ye Guqin had just broken through to the 8th refinement realm. Together with the body metamorphose scripture and marrow cleansing scripture, his body was at its peak, and his blood was like a dragon. Mo Lin, Ji Hongmei, we just need to stall for time. There are sky patrolling spiritual eyes here. When the time comes, someone will come to save us. Qin Badian stood up with difficulty and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He stared at Ye Guqin and said, "Dugu Wubai, you can't kill me today. In the future, I will work with my elder brother to kill you and Su Jianshir. Even if we can't kill you, we will mobilize our Qin clan's experts to kill you." Qin Baishan's voice was as cold as ice. At the same time, he secretly crushed a jade strip behind his back. Hearing Qin Baishan's words, Mo Lin and Ji Hongmei were overjoyed. It was as if they had grasped onto a life-saving straw. However, Ye Guqin laughed. It was a casual laugh, as if he had heard a funny joke. His blood-red eyes swept across the three as he said, "I said that if the three of you can walk out of here alive, Dugu Wubai, will kill myself on the spot." Clang! The sound of metal being buckled rang out. The power of ice and fire surged on Ye Guqin's body as a brilliant dragon armor of ice and fire appeared on his body. Ye Guqin held the meteor soft sword in his left hand. The blade was as cold as blood. He slowly raised his right hand, and along the tendons in his arm, waves of true qi gushed out from his fingertips. Ye Guqin hadn't used the martial arts of his previous life in a long time. This was because he had a few spirit-level sword arts to cultivate. Moreover, some martial arts of the Jianghu had certain requirements. But now, after breaking through the 8th cycle of qi refining, Ye Guqin could finally use this powerful martial art that was famous in Jianghu in his previous life. 6 Pulse Divine Sword. Chapter 149. Following Ye Guqin's roar, powerful true energy gushed out from Ye Guqin's right hand. Shaoshang Sword. Shangyang Sword. Middle Charge Sword. Guanchong Sword. Young Charge Sword, true energy gushed out from his meridians, forming into a sword aura. The sharp sword aura seemed to be able to tear apart the heavens and earth. The powerful sword aura pierced through the air and shot towards Qin Badian and the rest. What kind of martial art is this? Qin Badian and the other two trembled. They had never heard of such a martial art before. The three of them were forced back by the 6 Pulse Divine Sword aura, vomiting blood. The 6 Pulse Divine Sword was shockingly powerful. In the next moment, Ye Guqin's lips curled into a cold smile. His feet moved again, stepping on the 64 hexagrams of the Book of Changes. His entire body turned into a series of afterimages, like ripples on water. The top movement technique of the pugilistic world, wave-like minute steps. Because he could not reveal his identity as a sword master, Ye Guqin directly displayed the 2 top movement techniques of the pugilistic world. Regardless of whether it was the 6 Pulse Divine Sword or wave-like minute steps, they both required powerful internal energy. In this world, they required true energy. Thus, Ye Guqin took them out now. His cultivation had already reached the 8th cycle of qi refinement, allowing him to display these top-level martial arts. Damn it, this brat's martial arts are a little strange. Qin Badian roared, his flaming saber slashing through the air. Wild waves crushing dragon slash. Qin Badian seemed to have released all the true qi in his qi sea, pouring it into the saber. The entire flaming saber seemed to be unable to withstand this amount of true energy. The already cracked saber let out cracking sounds. Boom! Qin Baishan's saber slashed down, like a wave of fire, the saber aura destroyed everything in its path. Yiguchen held the meteor-soft sword in his left hand, a thick blood aura gathered on the blade. The Azura power in his body was also pushed to the limit. God-slaying sword technique, devil only. The sword slashed out, like a blood aura splashing across the sky. Bang! Qin Batian once again vomited blood as he was sent flying. His body shuddered violently as cracks appeared on his obsidian battle armor. It was as if half of it had been destroyed. Yiguchen was also knocked back, and a sweet taste rose in his throat. After all, it was Qin Batian's trump card, and Yiguchen had suffered some injuries. Just half a breath after Yiguchen and Qin Batian exchanged blows, a sinister and vigorous palm chi directly sneaked towards Yiguchen's back. Yiguchen turned around in an instant. Mo Lin had used all his strength to strike Yiguchen's chest. However, Yiguchen was only slightly injured due to the defense of the ice and fire dragon crystal armor. Why didn't you dodge? Mo Lin suddenly thought to himself. Then, with a trace of shock on his face, he suddenly retreated. Whoosh! 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 Yiguchen's right fingertip released 3 beams of qi from the 6 meridians divine sword, piercing towards Mo Lin. Pfft! Mo Lin tried his best to dodge 2 of them, but the 3rd beam pierced through his forearm, causing blood to spurt out. Mo Lin howled miserably as his face turned pale. Whoosh! A strange whip tore through the air, emitting a stifling screech. Dugu Wubai, you've ruined my appearance. Die! Ji Hongmei was like a ferocious ghost from hell. She held the whip with her remaining hand and only wanted to kill Yiguchen at this moment. Humph. Yiguchen's gaze turned even colder when he saw Ji Hongmei's attack. Although he wanted to kill Qin Batian and Mo Lin, it wasn't enough to truly incite his anger. However, this demoness was using her blood-stained whip to torture Su Jianshi. The blood on the whip came from Su Jianshi. It seems like I haven't taught you enough of a lesson. Yiguchen's gaze was as cold as the god of death. At this moment, it was as if he had truly turned into a sword demon. Whoosh! The god-slaying sword technique was executed once again. The intense sword radiance was like blood as it completely cut Ji Hongmei's whip apart. Then, he raised the tip of his sword and used a mysterious sword technique to draw an outline along Ji Hongmei's cheek. You have to pay the price for torturing Su Jianshi. Yiguchen's tone was as cold as ice as his sword vibrated. Rip! The sound of paper tearing could be heard. Ah! What followed was Ji Hongmei's inhuman shriek. A blood-soaked face flew out. Specks of blood splattered everywhere, leaving behind spots of vermilion. Ji Hongmei covered her bloodied face with both hands as she howled like a malicious spirit. In the next moment, Yiguchen used wave-like subtle steps as his figure flashed. With a slash of his sword, a bloody light appeared on Ji Hongmei's neck. A head that was badly mutilated was sent flying, and blood spurted out from the neck cavity, splashing into the sky. The number 1 prodigy of the state capital of Qing, the demoness Ji Hongmei, died on the spot. Dead silence, a suffocating silence, no matter if it was inside or outside the mountain range, it was completely silent. This was the first time the number 1 prodigy of the 10 prefectures elite gathering had died. Monster, you're a monster, not a human. Mo Lin saw Ji Hongmei's miserable state and felt a chill run down his spine. He had thought that Yiguchen was someone who would endure even if he was bullied. But now, he knew. If Yiguchen was not angry, he would be. If he was angry, he would be Azura. Run. There was only one thought left in Molin's mind. He had to run as far away as possible from this monster called Invincible Dugu. Yiguchen's meteor-soft sword was dripping with blood. He used wave-like subtle steps and slashed out again. Do you think you can escape? Powerful golden true chi surged out. This time, Yiguchen even used a trace of Azura sword intent. Even though it was only a trace, its power was still terrifying. A bloody storm surged out. God-slaying sword art, demon only. A wisp of blood-red light reflected the sky. After adding a trace of the Shura sword intent to it, the might of this sword strike was earth-shattering. Puchi. The bloody sword light that seemed capable of destroying everything directly pierced through Mo Lin's chest. Because of the terrifying destructive power of the god-slaying sword art, Mo Lin's entire chest exploded. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere as his internal organs exploded. Plop. Mo Lin's corpse fell to the ground. The number one prodigy of the Yuanyang prefecture had died. Following the tragic deaths of Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin, Qin Batian was completely dumbfounded. He looked at Yi Guqin with a gaze that was filled with emotions. Fear. This Qin Batian, who had always been lawless and overbearing, was completely terrified of Yi Guqin. You better not kill me, otherwise. Qin Batian's body was trembling and his voice was trembling. It was as if the person before him wasn't Yi Guqin, but an Azura from hell. Don't you think it's stupid to say such words now? When the three of you were trying to kill Su Jianshi, did you think that you would have such an experience? Yi Guqin's tone was ice-cold. He slowly brushed the meteorite soft sword with one hand and flung away the blood on it. No, don't. Qin Batian squeezed out almost all the true qi in his qi as he turned around and dashed out. A bloody light reflected in Yi Guqin's eyes. The meteorite soft sword in his hand slashed through the air. With another slash, the sword light swept across the sky. However, at this moment, a cold and arrogant roar sounded from afar. If you dare to attack, Qin Aoshi will pull out your tendons and flay your bones. However, Qin Aoshi was like a bolt of lightning as he charged towards them. Big brother. Qin Batian's face revealed the joy of escaping death. He had secretly crushed the jade strip to send a message to Qin Aoshi to come over. Now, his savior had finally arrived. However, he saw Qin Aoshi's incomparably shocked and furious expression. Why is Big Brother showing such an expression? Qin Batian was puzzled. Then, he slightly lowered his head and saw the tip of a blood-red sword piercing through his obsidian battle armor and through his heart. Qin Batian turned his head with difficulty and saw Yi Guqin's blood-red eyes. I regret. Feeling the life force in his body rapidly draining away, Qin Batian spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with endless regret. If he could do it all over again, he would never have provoked Yi Guqin. Plop, Qin Batian's body fell to the ground. Dugu Wubai, I will kill you today. Qin Aoshi roared. His eyes were blood-red and ferocious. He was like a thunder god from hell. Endless lightning true qi erupted from his body and swept through the surrounding forest. Chapter 150. How could Qin Aoshi not be enraged when he saw Qin Batian die in front of him? He did not care about what Qin Batian had done. He only knew that this ordinary-looking young man with bloodshot eyes had killed his younger brother. Die. Qin Aoshi donned the Thunder God's battle armor and lightning surrounded his body. His aura was like a long spear. Murderous intent gathered in his eyes. He clasped his hands together and curled his fingers. Then, he slowly pulled open a dazzling lightning bolt. Amidst the divine lightning, a silver spear materialized. It was the Thunder Spear, an upper-grade spiritual weapon. Qin Aoshi donned the Thunder God's battle armor and held the Thunder Spear in his hand. Dazzling lightning bolts surrounded his body like dragons. His aura was so strong that it was terrifying. Today, I can only use your life to let Batian die in peace. Qin Aoshi's voice was cold. His facial features were deep, and he was like the Thunder God from hell. Who can take my life? You? Yi Guqin's face was cold. He was like an Azura from the sword. Although he had killed Qin Batian and the other two, his aura was still strong. Although he had suffered some injuries, it was not a big problem in front of the powerful recovery of his perfect physical body. Kill. Qin Aoshi did not say anything. His thunder spear pierced through the air. The tip of the spear was filled with lightning bolts. Yiguchen's meteorite soft sword also pierced through the air. The tip of the sword and the tip of the spear collided, resulting in a violent explosion. Bang! Both of them retreated. Yiguchen glanced at Qin Aoshi and was slightly shocked. Qin Aoshi was indeed different from Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin. Although they were both titled as the #1 Sky Prides, Qin Aoshi was obviously stronger than them. Moreover, Yiguchen could faintly feel that there was an even more terrifying and violent power hidden in Qin Aoshi's body. Although it had not been revealed yet, the faint pressure was like a dark cloud pressing down on him. Thunderous 9 transformations, violent thunder collapse. Qin Aoshi's true qi surged out of his body. When the true qi exploded, there was actually a faint sound of thunder and lightning sparks. It was extremely domineering. Heterogeneous Qi. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows and drew out his soft meteorite sword. God-slaying sword technique, massacre. A blood-colored sword beam collided with the tip of Qin Aoshi's spear, once again shooting out a circle of ripples in the void. The sword beam and the lightning beam intertwined endlessly. Boom! 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 The two figures crisscrossed like dragons in the clouds and tigers in the wind. Yiguchen's entire body was surging with golden Jin Qi. The long sword in his hand was covered with a bloody light, making him look like a golden Azura war god. On the other hand, Qin Aoshi's thunder true Qi burst forth. The thunder spear swept across the void, and the thunder radiance rumbled. It was as if an enraged thunder god had descended to the world and was about to send down a heavenly tribulation. The surrounding forests were all destroyed, and the earth was torn apart. The shockwaves from the battle were so strong that it was terrifying, as if a giant beast was destroying the surrounding mountains. Two figures rushed over from the distant horizon. They were both experts in the divine soul realm. They had originally planned to come to the rescue, but when they saw the 3 miserable corpses, they knew that they were too late. Yiguchen killing people was not against the rules, so they did not attack Yiguchen. However, at this moment, even the 2 divine soul stage experts were stunned when they saw the world-shocking battle between Qin Aoshi and Yiguchen, who had arrived in rage. Was this really a battle between warriors in the Qi refining realm? The 2 experts in the divine soul realm looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Boom! Once again, Yiguchen and Qin Aoshi attacked with all their might. Yiguchen raised his right hand, and an extremely powerful Jin Qi gushed out along his meridians. It transformed into a sword beam that pierced towards Qin Aoshi. Qin Aoshi's gaze was as cold as ice. He actually allowed the 6-pulse godly sword Qi to hit his thunder god battlesuit. He, on the other hand, aimed his spear at Yiguchen. Lightning kill 9 transformations, sharp thunder blast. The power of lightning gathered at the tip of the lightning spear, forming a sharp cone that shot towards Yiguchen. Bang! 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 An earth-shattering explosion shook the sky. Qin Aoshi was pushed back more than 10 feet by the 6-pulse godly sword Qi. Even with the protection of the thunder god battlesuit, his blood surged, and a sweet taste rose in his throat. Yiguchen was the same. Qin Aoshi's spear hit the ice-fire dragon crystal armor. Although Yiguchen immediately activated the strengthening spirit rune, he was still hit by a huge force, and his body was pushed back. However, after a distance of more than 10 feet, the 2 of them looked at each other. One was a pair of eyes that were as cold and emotionless as an Azura. The other was a pair of eyes that were filled with lightning and anger. Bang! The 2 of them stomped on the ground again, and the ground cracked. Yiguchen's body seemed to have turned into a bloody shadow, and Qin Aoshi turned into a lightning bolt, and they collided rapidly. Boom! It was as if 2 angry dragons had collided, and a powerful shockwave swept out in all directions. Whether it was Yiguchen or Qin Aoshi, both of them gave up on defense, and only used their armors to protect themselves. They attacked with all their strength, and it was as if they were exchanging blows. Dugu Wubai, After you pierced Bashan's chest with your sword, you were destined to die under my spear. Qin Aoshi's spear shot towards Yiguchen. Why don't you ask what Qin Badian did? Only he is allowed to kill, and others are not allowed to kill him. Yiguchen's eyes were as cold as the abyss, and the bloody sword light tore through the air, and shot towards Qin Aoshi. Yes, that's right. It's because his brother is me, Spear King Qin Aoshi. Qin Aoshi's eyes were filled with killing intent, and his tone was cold and arrogant. He gathered the lightning true energy in his body, and once again shot out his spear, filling the sky with spear shadows. Cloudy Sky Spear Art. Yiguchen activated the Eye of Azura, and at the same time, he poured the power of Azura into the meteor soft sword. Blood-red energy spread across the sword, and an incomparably terrifying bloody aura burst out. God-slaying sword technique, demon only. Clang! The two collided, and true energy violently surged in all directions. It was as if two huge stars had collided, and then exploded. Yiguchen and Qin Aoshi could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and both of them retreated at the same time. At this moment, the surrounding ground was in a mess. The earth was cracked, and tens of thousands of pitch-black cracks appeared, and the mountains had collapsed. Not to mention the two Divine Soul Realm experts who were watching the battle from afar, even the spectators who were watching through the sky surveying spiritual eyes were stunned. The originally dense crowd was dead silent, and their eyes were fixed on the scene of Yiguchen and Qin Aoshi's battle. They did not expect that a battle between two Qi refining realm cultivators could be so fierce. Heaven's Pride. The true number one Heaven's Pride. Qin Aoshi's strength was well known, but what no one expected was that the ordinary young man named Dugu Wubai could actually fight with Qin Aoshi without being at a disadvantage. Although they were both number one Heaven's Pride, Qin Aoshi was not someone Ji Hongmei or Mo Lin could compare to. If this Dugu Wubai can safely survive this storm, he will definitely be a shining star in the future. Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's Elder Qing, he sighed. Of course, not everyone was looking forward to Yiguchen's performance. For example, those from the Qin family, Mo family, and Spring Cloud Pavilion had extremely ugly expressions on their faces. Quickly report to the Patriarch, Mo Lin is dead. Big Brother Badian is dead, Big Brother Aoshi must kill that Dugu Wubai. Send a message to the Pavilion Master, Senior Sister Ji Hongmei is also dead, and the person who killed her is Dugu Wubai. The people from the three forces were in an uproar. Obviously, this was going to be a big storm. After all, these three forces all had profound entrances of life and death, and even spiritual bridge of heaven and earth experts. They definitely could not watch their own Heaven's Pride die without doing anything. For Yiguchen, this was a life-threatening storm. Chapter 151. Within the mountain range, the battle had reached its climax. Yiguchen and Qin Aoshi both unleashed their powerful battle prowess. Especially Yiguchen. Although he couldn't use many of his techniques, he could still contend against Qin Aoshi with his God-slaying sword technique, six-pulse divine sword, and wave-like subtle steps. Boom! After another collision, the two of them were pushed back again. Qin Aoshi raised his eyebrows slightly. He was also shocked by Yiguchen's physical body and strength. On the other hand, Yiguchen also had a trace of seriousness towards Qin Aoshi, who had yet to reveal his trump card. At this moment, the two of them had blood on the corners of their mouths and were injured in many places. Because they didn't have any defense, other than the armor protecting their bodies, they were basically exchanging injuries for injuries, fighting with their lives on the line. Even Yiguchen's ice and fire dragon crystal armor had many cracks on it. However, with the self-healing spiritual runes, it could slowly heal. Just when the two of them were about to attack again, another figure appeared in the distance. After all, the commotion caused by Yiguchen and Qin Aoshi was a little too big. The impact of such an intense battle was even greater than the battle between Yiguchen and Qin Badian and the rest. In the distance, a man with a long sword wrapped in bandages appeared. It was Murongditian. In another place, a muscular man with a terrifying saber on his shoulder appeared. It was the blade maniac, Shin Tu Miao. However, there was another aura that made Yiguchen frown faintly. A beautiful woman in blue clothes appeared. She was as brilliant as ice and snow. Her ice-blue eyes were filled with surprise as she looked at Yiguchen and Qin Aoshi. It was Xia Yubing. The arrival of Xia Yubing, Murongditian, Shen Tu Miao and the rest made the atmosphere become strange. Even Qin Aoshi was frowning. Seeing Yiguchen wiping away the blood on the corner of his mouth, all the geniuses, including Xia Yubing, were shocked as they looked at Yiguchen. When they saw the corpses of Qin Batian, Mo Lin, and Ji Hongmei, even the usually indifferent Xia Yubing's icy blue eyes revealed astonishment. This. Qing State Prefecture's Ji Hongmei, Yuanyang Prefecture's Mo Lin and little tyrant Qin Batian are all dead? Murongditian was also slightly stunned. Even with his strength, it would not be easy for him to kill the three of them. However, none of these geniuses were fools. When they saw Qin Aoshi glaring at Yiguchen with hatred, they all knew what was going on. However, it was also because of this that Xia Yubing and the others were endlessly shocked. Could it be that these three were all killed by Dugu Wubai? Shintu Miao was a little stunned. Judging from Qin Aoshi's attitude, I'm afraid this is the case. Xia Yubing suppressed the shock in her heart and looked at Yiguchen with an incomparably serious gaze. In her heart, Yiguchen, who she originally viewed as a great enemy, did not come. But now, a dark horse that she had no choice but to pay attention to had appeared. Xia Yubing was very ambitious and had long since decided to shine in the 10 prefectures elite gathering. Therefore, Xia Yubing instinctively raised her vigilance towards the youth called Dugu Wubai. Seeing that Xia Yubing did not seem to have seen through his identity, Yiguchen's heart slightly relaxed. After all, he already had a mortal enemy, Qin Aoshi. If his identity was exposed, Xia Yubing, Murongditian and Qin Aoshi would definitely take action. No matter how powerful Yiguchen was, it was impossible for him to fight against the three of them at the same time. The three of them were not on the same level as Qin Batian and the other two. What's wrong, Qin Aoshi? Have you still decided to take action? Yiguchen indifferently said. Are you afraid? Qin Aoshi tightly grasped his lightning spear as the killing intent in his eyes did not decrease. It's not that I'm afraid. It's just that if both of us are injured, it would benefit others. Yiguchen smiled. There was not the slightest trace of fear in his blood moon-like eyes. If Qin Aoshi was determined to fight to the death, he would definitely accompany him. Qin Aoshi's face was as cold as the eternal ice abyss. He glanced at Xia Yubing and the rest with a trace of hesitation in his heart. Although he had the intention to kill Yiguchen, there was a pack of wolves eyeing him covetously. They were still in the second stage of the elite gathering. If he and Yiguchen were to fight to the death, they would not be able to resist when Xia Yubing and the rest made their move. Do you think that I will let you go just like that? Qin Aoshi's expression was still sinister. Ah, when have I, Dugu Wubai, ever thought of retreating? I just don't want to work for others. If you want to fight to the death, I will definitely accompany you to the end. Yiguchen's voice was sonorous. His body was as straight as a sword as a surge of battle intent soared into the heavens. Fine, Dugu Wubai, I will let you live for a few more days. Wait for me to take your life. Although Qin Aoshi's eyes were filled with unwillingness, he had no other choice. Furthermore, there were still 2 more stages in the elite gathering. Qin Aoshi was not afraid that Yiguchen would escape. His gaze was filled with bone-deep hatred as he looked at Yiguchen. Then, he picked up Qin Baishan's corpse and turned to leave. Seeing Qin Aoshi leave, Yiguchen breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Although he did not fear Qin Aoshi, this was indeed not a good time. However, there was one thing that Yiguchen was certain of. He and Qin Aoshi would definitely have an ultimate battle to the death. In the end, only one of them could survive. Yiguchen slightly tilted his head and swept his gaze across Xia Yubing and the rest. For some unknown reason, Xia Yubing and the others felt a faint sense of fear when they saw Yi Guqin's eyes, which still had some remnants of blood redness in them. This person. Xia Yubing had a strange feeling in her heart, but she couldn't explain it clearly. Everyone, the show has ended. It's time for you to leave. Yi Guqin spoke with a hoarse voice. Ever since he had transformed into Dugu Wubai, his voice had always been like this. I originally thought that Su Jianxue was the biggest dark horse. But now, it seems that young Master Dugu is the most mysterious existence. Xia Yubing faintly smiled as she spoke with an indescribable tone. Yi Guqin looked at Xia Yubing. His enemy was right in front of him. However, his state of mind was unexpectedly calm. Because it was not the time for the final conclusion, but it would be soon. Yi Guqin faintly sighed in his heart as he directly took Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin's origin rings. As for Xia Yubing, Murong Ditian, and Shen Tu Miao, they felt a slight ripple in their hearts when they saw this scene. Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin were both #1 heavenly prides. They obviously had a lot of beast cores in their hands. However, the fact that Yi Guqin was able to compete with Qin Aoshi's strength made them hesitate. In the end, Xia Yubing and the rest also left. Looking at the departing figures of Xia Yubing and the rest, Yi Guqin's gaze was filled with deep meaning. Xia Yubing, just you wait. Very soon, I will bring you a true surprise. Yi Guqin's lips carried a cold smile. However, before that, Yi Guqin still had something to deal with. Did they escape in that direction? Yi Guqin looked at the forest in the south. Chapter 152. When Yi Guqin was in the blood demon's lair, he had already sensed the aura that was hiding in the dark. If he wasn't mistaken, the aura that carried the scent of blood belonged to Luo Cheng. When he thought of Luo Cheng, Yi Guqin's eyes turned cold again. With Yi Guqin's intelligence, how could he not connect the dots? This series of events must have happened because Luo Cheng, who had escaped, was secretly adding fuel to the fire. Even Qin Batian and the other two couldn't escape. Do you think you can? Yi Guqin looked towards the south. After settling Su Jianxue down for the time being, Yi Guqin headed towards the forest in the south. In the forest, a blood-red figure was running away. This Dugu Wubai is too terrifying. He didn't reveal his strength before, but I didn't expect him to be so strong. Damn it! The figure that was running at high speed was none other than Luo Cheng, who had escaped. As the mastermind behind the scenes, Luo Cheng had been watching in the dark. When Qin Batian and the other two were trying to kill Su Jianxue, he still felt the joy of revenge. But when Yi Guqin came out of seclusion and killed the three of them, and even fought to a draw with the enraged Qin Aoshi, Luo Cheng was scared out of his wits. He didn't expect that the person he had provoked was actually such a terrifying existence who had concealed his strength. Moreover, Luo Cheng knew very well that with Yi Guqin's character, he would definitely kill him. So when Yi Guqin and Qin Aoshi were fighting, he immediately ran away. But how could he escape from Yi Guqin's senses? Coupled with Yi Guqin's wave-like minute steps, it didn't take long for him to catch up to Luo Cheng. Damn it! This Dugu Wubai is a monster. Since when did such a person appear in the Saint Origin dynasty? Luo Cheng clenched his teeth with a trace of regret in his heart. As someone who lived on the edge of a blade all year round, he truly felt a sense of danger. He didn't even feel such a sense of danger when he was being chased by a divine soul realm expert. Where are you trying to escape to? In the dense forest in front of Luo Cheng, there was a figure in a blood-stained black robe. He wore the ice and fire dragon crystal armor and held the meteorite soft sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was overflowing with a scarlet sword gleam. That pair of abyss-like pitch-black eyes faintly surged with a touch of blood red. Dugu Wubai. Luo Cheng's face turned pale in an instant. His legs went soft, and he actually fell to the ground. Cutting off one of your arms was giving you a chance, but you chose the path of death. Yi Guqin's tone was indifferent. Although Qin Batian and the other two had already been killed by him, Luo Cheng, who had added fuel to the fire, was the most hateful person. Dugu Wubai, spare me, give me a chance, I'm willing to be your servant, no, your slave. Luo Cheng knelt on the ground. His forehead hit the ground as he kept kowtowing. Yi Guchen walked up to Luo Cheng slowly. At this moment, Luo Cheng, who had his head bowed, suddenly had a ferocious look in his eyes. He suddenly leaped up with a crazed look on his face like a trapped beast. He held a blood-red dagger in his remaining hand and stabbed it at Yi Guchen's throat. Dugu Wubai, go to hell. Luo Cheng had been accumulating power for a long time, so his speed was extremely fast like a blood-red lightning bolt. Yi Guchen smiled coldly. He performed the 64 hexagrams of the Book of Changes and performed wave-like subtle steps. His figure instantly became blurry like a misty rain. This sure-kill attack of Luo Cheng's directly missed its target. Clang! A blood-red sword gleam flashed in the dim forest. In half a breath's time, Yi Guchen was already standing a few feet behind Luo Cheng. Luo Cheng maintained his posture of stabbing with his dagger. Yi Guchen sighed softly. A streak of blood appeared on Luo Cheng's neck. His entire head rolled on the ground with a thud. This famous heaven's pride of the great desolate mansion had fallen. After Yi Guchen picked up Luo Cheng's origin ring, his figure flashed and left. In the Black Sky Mountain Range, the news of Yi Guchen killing Ji Hongmei, Qin Batian, and Mo Lin had already spread throughout the mountain range. Almost all the participating cultivators knew about this news. When they first heard this news, the first reaction in the minds of all the warriors was, they didn't believe it. One must know that those who could obtain the title of number one heaven's pride of the prefecture were not weak. Although Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin were ranked near the bottom of the top 10 heaven's pride of the prefecture, they were still number one heaven's pride. Yi Guchen killed them as if they were dogs. None of the cultivators believed it at first. However, when Xia Yubing, Murong Ditian, Shen Tu Miao, and the others confirmed this news, even if they didn't believe it, they had no choice but to accept it. Moreover, the news of Yi Guchen fighting Qin Aoshi to a draw also spread. Qin Aoshi was much stronger than Ji Hongmei, Mo Lin, and the others. Even so, he could only fight to a draw with Yi Guchen. Although many people guessed that it was because Qin Aoshi hadn't used his full strength, not many people looked down on Yi Guchen anymore. Yi Guchen's actions would cause a huge commotion. At this moment, he brought the unconscious Su Jianshi to the side of a lake. Although Yi Guchen had already fed Su Jianshi a medicinal pill, she still showed no signs of waking up. Yi Guchen sighed as he looked at Su Jianshi's tattered clothes and her delicate body covered in whip marks. It was the hardest thing to accept a beauty's favor. He was very puzzled as to why Su Jianshi would do so much for him. However, Yi Guchen didn't want to think too much about it. After a bit of hesitation, Yi Guchen still untied Su Jianshi's clothes. The whip marks on Su Jianshi's delicate body would definitely leave scars in the future if they weren't treated immediately. Sorry for the offense. Yi Guchen removed Su Jianshi's clothes. The girl's delicate body was soft and inexperienced. Although her figure hadn't matured yet, it was as beautiful as a bud. However, the crisscrossing bloody whip marks were very dazzling. After cleaning the wounds and applying medicine, he used his true qi to nourish Su Jianshi's body. While doing all this, Yi Guchen's mind was calm without the slightest bit of lust. After doing all this, Yi Guchen took out a new set of clothes from the jade bracelet on Su Jianshi's wrist and clumsily put them on. After finishing, Yi Guchen's forehead was covered in a layer of sweat. He felt that it was more exhausting than fighting Qin Aoshi. After Yi Guchen repeatedly infused her with true energy and consumed pills, Su Jianshi's beautiful eyes finally opened after about a day. She didn't feel the sticky feeling of being covered in blood like she had imagined. She slowly sat up and saw Yi Guchen sitting cross-legged not far from her. Su Jianshi was a bit puzzled at first. She looked down at herself and saw a brand new azure dress. But why did it feel so cold? Su Jianshi pondered in a daze for a moment. Her face that was originally pale from her injuries instantly blushed like a rouge. Su Jianchu's voice was like an aureole as she shouted, "Silly brat, what did you do?" She wanted to get up, but she ended up sitting on the ground again. Yi Guqin said, "Don't move so violently or your wounds will reopen. It won't be good if it leaves a scar." What did you do?" Su Jianchu clenched her teeth, but her mind was in a mess. Yi Guqin was very direct, "If you don't treat your wounds, they will leave a scar." "So you..." Su Jianchu was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. "That's right." Yi Guqin woodenly nodded. Only when it came to dealing with girls did he lose the demeanor of the sword devil. "I'm going to die." This silly brat saw everything. Jianchu was on the verge of going crazy. Even though she approved of Yi Guqin's character, any young girl wouldn't be able to remain calm in this situation. Su Jianchu gritted her teeth and puffed up her cheeks as if she was having a hard time speaking. Her face was slightly red. After a while, she spoke with a coquettish tone. "I'll let it go since you treated my wounds, but why did you only wear an outer garment?" Yi Guqin. Chapter 153. Su Jianchu blushed because of Yi Guqin's treatment of her wound. But when Su Jianchu learned that Yi Guqin had killed the four of them, including Luo Cheng, she became silent. She fell silent. Su Jianchu bit her lip and said, "I'm sorry." "Why? I should be the one saying that." Yi Guqin was a little surprised. Su Jianchu said, "Although you killed Qin Batian and the others, you formed a grudge with Qin Aoshi. Furthermore, the forces behind them won't let you go. It's fine. Sword cultivators like us have nothing to fear in the face of danger. It's better to say that the more enemies I have, the better my path of the sword will be." Yi Guqin's black hair fluttered in the wind as he spoke. His eyes were filled with confidence. This wasn't arrogance, but the pride of a sword cultivator. Even Su Jianchu, who had always been carefree, felt a little dazed when she saw Yi Guqin's carefree demeanor. Although the youth in front of him had an extremely ordinary appearance, his pride as a sword cultivator was enough to subdue others. Unknowingly, Su Jianchu found that there was a faint figure in her heart that she couldn't get rid of. Before this, the only man she was curious about was the sword sex Yi Guqin, whom she had never met before. But now, Su Jianchu felt that the youth standing before her was more worthy of being the sword sex grandmaster than Yi Guqin. Of course, this was because she didn't know that Dugu Wubai was Yi Guqin. "You're right. Sword cultivators like us have nothing to fear. Don't worry, no one can touch you with me around. If anyone dares to touch you, I'll beat them up." Su Jianchu seemed to have recovered her energy. She clenched her fists and put on a cute and fierce appearance. "That's more like you." Yi Guqin smiled faintly. Su Jianchu also smiled. By the lakeside that was as clear as a mirror, the young girl's smile was like a blooming flower. That sweet smile caused Yi Guqin to become absent-minded for a moment. "Silly boy, let me ask you a question." Su Jianchu crossed her jade-like arms behind her back and slightly peeked at Yi Guqin. "What's the problem?" Yi Guqin asked. "Are you willing to be my vice-alliance leader?" Su Jianchu blushed. Yi Guqin was slightly taken aback. By the lakeside, a young girl with a blush on her face was as beautiful as a fairy. Her sweet smile seemed to be able to melt one's heart. Yi Guqin was at a loss for words. Su Jianchu's eyelids fluttered as her thick and curled eyelashes fluttered. Her eyes were as clear as autumn water with a trace of anticipation. "I'm willing." Since Su Jianchu was willing to die for him, how could Yi Guqin be stingy with a promise? "Then it's settled." Su Jianchu smiled in a charming manner. Yi Guqin regained his senses and said, "All right, the Black Sky Mountain Ranges hunt will end in a few days. Let's organize the beast corps." "Okay." Su Jianchu nodded. Although she was currently injured, she still smiled brightly. After obtaining the origin rings of Qin Batian and the others, they had also obtained a lot of beast cores. Yiguchen estimated that Su Jianshi might be able to reach the top 3 or even first place with the addition of a rank 5 Blood Demon's beast core. Su Jianshi was also smiling like a flower. Her mind was filled with plans to form the Righteous Alliance. Black Sky Mountain Range's central region. In a dark and remote forest, a handsome young man in white was slaying a rank 3 demonic beast. He wiped off the blood on his sword and put away the beast core. This young man was Murong Ming of the Murong family. Damn it! This stage is about to end. Finding even a single level 3 Yao beast is difficult. Big Brother should be done as well. However, according to Big Brother's information, that Dugu Wubai actually possesses such a high level of combat power, Murong Ming mumbled. The Big Brother he was referring to was naturally Murong Ditian. Murong Ming was naturally surprised by the news of Dugu Wubai, but that was it. But if he knew that Dugu Wubai was Yiguchen, he would probably have a mental breakdown. Just as Murong Ming was packing up and preparing to leave, a figure appeared in the dense forest not far away at an unknown time. That figure was covered in a gray cloak. Oh. Who are you? I'm Murong Ming of the Murong family. Murong Ming frowned and shouted coldly when he saw the gray-robed figure. That gray-robed figure suddenly trembled when he heard Murong Ming's words. Murong Ming sneered. He faintly remembered that this gray-robed figure was a dark horse called Hong Chenxue. Murong Ming felt a little proud in his heart when he saw the gray-robed man's trembling reaction after he reported his origin. As a disciple of a super family, he had such confidence. However, swoosh. The figure of the gray-robed man nearby instantly became blurry. In the next moment, a cold and sharp sword edge directly slashed towards Murong Ming's neck. The gray-robed figure's actions were too fast and too sudden. Murong Ming could not react in time. The sword slashed across Murong Ming's neck, causing blood to spurt out. You are... Murong Ming caught a glimpse of the face under the hood when the sword slashed across. Murong Ming's eyes widened. A trace of surprise appeared on his face before it froze. Plop! Murong Ming's body fell to the ground as blood flowed out. Murong family, the 12th one. Aside from Murong Ditian, the rest of the Murong family disciples have been killed. It's a pity that the Blood Listening Tower will not be participating in the elite gathering. Otherwise, that sword demon would have definitely died by my hands. The gray-robed figure's voice was pleasant to the ears, but it carried a bone-deep hatred. When we reach the 4th stage, Murong Ditian, you will also die. The gray-robed figure became blurry again and disappeared. 15 days later, the 2nd stage of the Black Sky Mountain Range had come to an end. The martial artists who were still alive all walked out of the mountain range. There were more than 1,000 cultivators who participated in the 2nd stage. However, only about 700 of them walked out alive. It was obvious that the remaining 300 to 400 people had all died in the Black Sky Mountain Range. Looking at the wounded cultivators who walked out of the mountain range, the spectators sighed. The 10 Prefectures elite gathering was indeed worthy of being the most prestigious gathering in the Saint Origin dynasty. Those who were able to stand out in the end were the true geniuses with outstanding talent, strength, and experience. When Yiguchen and Su Jianshi walked out of the Black Sky Mountain Range, the bustling atmosphere seemed to have been cut off abruptly and fell into a strange silence. Tens of thousands of gazes fell on the two of them almost uniformly. Of course, there were even more gazes that fell on Yiguchen. Feeling the strange atmosphere, Su Jianshi stuck out her tongue and patted Yiguchen's shoulder. Silly boy, you're on fire. Yiguchen shook his head indifferently and ignored the gazes. However, at this moment, 3 extremely majestic auras suddenly came from the distant sky. The 3 figures traversed the void and their auras were astonishing. It was like a tribulation cloud, bringing along an oppressive feeling. Traversing the void? They're experts at the spiritual bridge realm and there are 3 of them. Many cultivators were shocked by the pressure and couldn't help but cry out. Yiguchen narrowed his eyes with a trace of solemnity. What will come will come. Chapter 154. The three figures stepped into the void, causing ripples in the void. One of them was a middle-aged man in black armor. His hands were behind his back, and he had sharp eyebrows and fierce eyes. He exuded a majestic and oppressive aura. He was the Qin clan's spiritual bridge expert, Qin Baijian. The other person was an old man in a black robe. His hair and beard were all white, but his slightly turbid old eyes were surging with monstrous anger. The old man was the Mo clan's patriarch, Mo Yunzi. The last person was a beautiful woman in a pink palace dress. She was mature and charming, like a beautiful snake. However, her true qi wasn't any weaker than Qin Baijian and Mo Yunzi. She was the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master. The three Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge experts rushed over at the same time after receiving the message from their clansmen. At this moment, they were filled with rage. The auras of the three experts were like wild wolves that drowned out the heavens. Three cold gazes fell on Yiguchen. A suffocating pressure pressed down on Yiguchen. Yiguchen groaned and took a few steps back. His face was slightly pale. At this moment, Yiguchen's hand was held by a soft jade. Su Jianshi held Yiguchen's hand tightly and stood beside him. Su Jianshi, you. Yiguchen paused. He actually didn't want to drag Su Jianshi into this. After all, these weren't ordinary experts, but three spiritual bridge experts. Are you looking down on me? Su Jianshi pouted. She had her own persistence and stubbornness. Yiguchen could only smile bitterly when he heard this. However, his frozen heart was quietly covered by a wisp of warmth. You're Dugu Wubai. The first to speak was Qin Baijian, a famous expert known as the Qin clan's war monarch. He was extremely powerful. I am. What can I do for you? Yiguchen raised his eyebrows with a calm expression. Good lad, your methods are so vicious. You killed my grandson, Mo Lin, and yet you still look so relaxed. On the other side, a strand of a cold expression surged onto Mo Yunzi's face that was like the bark of a withered tree. Mo Lin was his most beloved grandson. Since Yiguchen had killed Mo Lin, Mo Yunzi would naturally not let him off. You killed the genius of Spring Cloud Pavilion, Ji Hongmei. Kid, you are very brave, but at the same time, you are very stupid. The Spring Cloud Pavilion Master spoke. Her voice was extremely gentle, but it was extremely cold. When cultivators fight, life and death are up to fate. If the one who died today was me, I'm sure none of you would feel anything. Facing the cold gazes of the three powerhouses, Yiguchen calmly faced them. This attitude caused the surrounding martial artists to sigh in admiration in their hearts. Not to mention other things, just this bearing in front of a powerhouse was not something an ordinary cultivator could do. Kid, you were unknown before. I'm sure you're not a genius from a major faction. You should know the principle that too much is easy to break. Qin Baijian's tone was cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Although the Qin clan still had Qin Aoshi, Qin Batian was still a genius of the direct line of descent. Now that he had died at the hands of Yiguchen, Qin Baijian would not let Yiguchen off. Sword cultivators like us show off our abilities and eliminate injustice with a single strike. If I don't do anything, do you think I'll allow those clowns to act presumptuously in front of me? Yiguchen's tone was sonorous, and his aura was like a sharp sword that soared into the sky. His words were like a thunderclap. Many martial artists sighed. Some sword cultivators were so emotional that their faces were flushed red. They looked at Yiguchen with eyes full of respect. Eliminating injustice with a single strike was the dream of many sword cultivators. But how many of them could actually do it? When Su Jianshi was surrounded by Qin Batian and the others, the spectating martial artists were disdainful and displeased. After all, three heavens' prides had forced a girl to die. But when Yiguchen killed the three of them, the martial artists felt as if they had vented their anger and were incomparably carefree. But to be honest, even if they defeated Qin Batian and the others, they wouldn't dare to kill them. After all, the three of them had extraordinary backgrounds. But Yiguchin had killed them. Moreover, he had killed them cleanly and without any hesitation. Everyone had no choice but to be convinced by his magnanimity and methods. But those words were extremely grating in the ears of the three Qin clan's experts. How dare you? Mo Yunzi's gaze was as if he wanted to cut Yiguchin into 1,000 pieces. The killing intent of the three experts filled the sky, causing the sky to change color. A suffocating pressure came crashing down. Many martial artists felt their chests tighten, and their footsteps became unsteady. It was easy to imagine how much pressure Yiguchin, who was at the center of the pressure, was enduring. However, even in the face of such pressure, Yiguchin was still fearless. Because he had made up his mind that the three experts wouldn't dare to make a move now. Finally, in the suffocating confrontation, a voice slowly sounded. This farce should end for now. The elite meeting isn't over yet. The one who spoke was Elder Qing He of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest. Although Elder Qing He was only at the life and death threshold, he was still an elder of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest. Therefore, even if the three Qin clans' cultivations were higher than Elder Qing He, they couldn't ignore him. So it's Elder Qing He of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest. It's just that this kid is cruel and ruthless. Although he has some talent, I'm afraid he'll become a demon who only knows how to kill in the future. Mo Yunzi's face darkened as he spoke. I also think we should end it for now. We'll deal with this after the elite meeting. Zhao Jingting of the Limitless Sword Sect also spoke. Hearing this, the three experts' faces changed. How could they not know that the Limitless Sword Sect and the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest had the intention to recruit Yiguchin? However, they could imagine that if Yiguchin successfully passed the elite meeting and entered one of the 7 major powers, with the Qin clan, Mo clan, and Spring Cloud Pavilion's foundations, they wouldn't dare to kill Yiguchin. After understanding the situation, Qin Baijian, Mo Yunzi, and the Spring Cloud Pavilion masters' faces darkened. Third uncle, don't worry. This Dugu Wubai won't live until the end of the elite meeting. I'll definitely kill him in the 4th round. Just when the atmosphere was in a deadlock, Qin Aoshi stood out. His voice was as cold as ice, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Alright, then we'll let this kid live for a few more days. Qin Baijian's face softened a little. Although Mo Yunzi and the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master were furious, they could only give up for now. If they directly attacked, they wouldn't be provoking the Limitless Sword Sect and the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest, but the entire 7 major powers. This was because the elite meeting was jointly organized by the 7 major powers. Dugu Wubai, I admit that you're very strong. However, you'll die by my hands. Furthermore, with the sharpness you've displayed, I'm not the only one who wants to kill you. Qin Aoshi slowly raised his thunder spear and pointed it at Yiguchin. If you want to attack, I'll accompany you anytime. However, you'll have to be prepared to face the same fate as Qin Badian. Yiguchin said indifferently. The corner of Qin Aoshi's eyes twitched. He suppressed the anger in his heart and coldly glanced at Yiguchin. The storm had temporarily stopped. However, after the incident with Yiguchin, another storm arose. The center of this storm was the Murong clan. There were many geniuses in the Murong clan, but only Murong Ditian had walked out of the Black Sky mountain range. Even his younger brother, Murong Ming, had been found dead in the mountain range. This caused everyone in the Murong clan to be furious. Murong Ditian was even more furious. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this was an attempt to exterminate the Murong clan. However, because the sky surveying spiritual eyes couldn't capture it, there was no way to determine who had done it. This time, the Murong clan had suffered a huge loss. Out of the group of elite disciples, only Murong Ditian was left. It was quite a miserable situation. Chapter 155. Although the incident at the Murong family had caused another uproar, the elite meeting still had to go on. Alright, it's time to report the results. The old man who presided over the meeting said. Many warriors became nervous when they heard this. After all, only the top 500 warriors could enter the third stage of the second stage. At the same time, many people looked at Yi Guqian. They were curious about how many beast cores Dugu Wubai had obtained since he could kill a rank 3 demonic beast in one strike. Some warriors in the Black Sky Mountain range also looked at Yi Guqian with curiosity. They had heard that Yi Guqian had killed a rank 5 blood demonic beast before. In fact, many people did not believe it because a rank 5 demonic beast was comparable to a life and death chamber expert. How could a Qi refining realm warrior kill one? However, some people had a faint premonition in their hearts after seeing Yi Guqian's battle record. This news isn't groundless. But no matter what, the results would be out soon. Yuanyang Mansion, Zhou Ling, 2 rank 3 beast cores. Score, 20 points. Many invigilators began to calculate the results. The number of beast cores and the score of each warrior were clearly counted. But the majority of the martial artists only harvested rank 3 demonic pills. Furthermore, it was even 3 or 4. After all, not everyone was like Yi Guqian, who had the strength to kill a rank 3 demonic beast in one strike. When the number of beast cores was checked, the number and quality of the beast cores had obviously increased. Mystic Spirit Mansion, by Yanji, 16 rank 3 beast cores and 1 rank 4 beast core. Score, 210 points. An invigilator said, which attracted the attention of many warriors. Bai Yanji is the number 1 genius of the Mystic Spirit Mansion. Many people looked over. Bai Yanji was dressed in a white robe that was spotless. He looked handsome and refined, giving off an elegant feeling. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. He waved a folding fan in one hand and had a tang saber at his waist. His expression was calm. He knew that he would definitely pass and his ranking would not be too low. No wonder he's the number 1 genius of a mansion. The gap is too big. Many warriors sighed. As time passed, most of the warriors' beast cores were counted. Donglin Mansion's Qi Naoshi, 23 rank 3 beast cores and 2 rank 4 beast cores. Score, 330 points. Along with the invigilator's slightly shocked voice, the surrounding martial artists all sucked in a breath of air. Qi Naoshi's strength is indeed terrifying. He killed rank 3 demonic beasts with ease. He even killed rank 4 demonic beasts. Such a dazzling battle record attracted the attention of the people from the 7 great factions. Qi Naoshi's expression was still cold as he glanced at Yi Guqian. Yi Guqian did not care. Soon, it was his turn. When Yi Guqian took out the beast cores, almost everyone's eyes fell on him. After the invigilator finished counting, he looked at Yi Guqian strangely and said, Milky Way Prefecture's Dugu Wubai, 17 rank 3 beast cores and 2 rank 4 beast cores. Score, 270 points. When the invigilator shouted out, many martial artists also revealed astonished expressions. However, the 7 major forces members on the high platform frowned slightly. This result might be very eye-catching for ordinary geniuses. After all, Bai Yanji of the Mystic Spirit Mansion only got 210 points. But who was Dugu Wubai? He had killed 3 geniuses in a row and was able to compete with Qi Naoshi. He was even rumored to have killed a rank 5 blood demon. How could his result be so low? Could it be that the news is fake? But then again, it's a rank 5 blood demon. Even if it's not at its peak, it's not something a Qi refinement realm warrior can kill. Some of the 7 major forces members whispered to each other. Yi Guqian shook his head and didn't pay attention to the discussions around him and the 7 major forces' doubtful gazes. He had given most of the beast cores to Su Jianshi. Apart from the rank 3 beast cores, he only kept the 2 rank 4 beast cores from the Heaven-Earth demonic ape. He didn't care about his ranking as long as he was in the top 500. Humph, that's all you got. Qi Naoshi snorted with disdain. Yi Guqian ignored him. Next, a few more geniuses' results were announced. Shintu Miao, Yuan Mia, Prince Yuani, Murong Ditian, Zither Fairy, and the others all obtained stunning results. Milky Way Prefecture's Xia Yubing. As the Milky Way Prefecture's invigilator spoke, the noisy atmosphere suddenly quieted down. Without the two dark horses, Su Jianshi and Yi Guqian, Xia Yubing was undoubtedly the fastest rising and most eye-catching prodigy. Xia Yubing wore a blue robe. Her skin was as smooth as jade, and her temperament was as cold as smoke. Her eyes were indifferent and very calm. She had absolute confidence in herself. She wanted to climb from the first stage to the last. This was Xia Yubing's ambition. She wanted to be the most dazzling existence in this elite gathering. Milky Way Prefecture's Xia Yubing, 47 rank 3 Beast Cores, for rank 4 Beast Cores, 670 points. The invigilator spoke with a trembling voice. The surroundings were deathly silent. Only the cultivators were left holding their breaths. Many cultivators couldn't hide their shock. 47 Beast Cores. This Xia Yubing is really powerful. She's not weaker than Yuan Mia, Shintu Miao, and the others. There's also a rank 4 Yao Dan. There are 4 of them, and they were all killed by her alone. She really is worthy of being called a proud daughter of heaven. Xia Yubing's result undoubtedly caused an uproar and shock. Even the people from the 7 big powers were extremely shocked. After obtaining the North River Sword Monarch's inheritance, Xia Yubing has really soared. Elder Qing He of the Sword Sect Tower Forest sighed. This Xia Yubing is also the target of our Limitless Sword Sect, said Zhao Jingting of the Limitless Sword Sect. Xia Yubing is a woman. She's most suitable to join our Consonant's Divine Palace. An elder from Consonant's Divine Palace also appeared. It was a charming woman. It was very clear that Xia Yubing had already completely become the target that the 7 great powers were fighting over. Seeing the numerous martial artists' gazes of admiration, as well as the discussions of the 7 great powers, Xia Yubing's lips curved into a faint smile. Next, Milky Way Prefecture's Su Jianshi. Suddenly, the Milky Way Prefecture's invigilator was speechless. The abrupt interruption attracted the attention of many cultivators. But when they saw Su Jianshi's actions, their jaws almost dropped to the ground. This was because Su Jianshi was pouring out beast cores like beans for the examiners to count. Could she be more domineering? Many cultivators cursed in their hearts. At the same time, they were shocked. Xia Yubing also looked over. She wanted to see if Su Jianshi's results would surpass hers. Chapter 156. 3rd Grade Beast Cores, 63. 4th Grade Beast Cores, 4. Just as the invigilator's voice trembled and he was about to report the score, he paused. This is a 5th Grade Beast Core. The invigilator looked as if he had seen a ghost. He picked up a dark red Yao core with an abnormally dense Yao Qi and looked at it over and over again before confirming. 5th Grade Beast Core. This was like a sudden clap of thunder. Everyone was dumbfounded. A 5th grade beast was almost comparable to a life and death chamber expert. The old man in charge of the competition had said that he didn't expect anyone to obtain a 5th grade beast core, and that anyone who did would get 200 points. But now, when this 5th grade beast core appeared, even the old man was stunned. He couldn't believe it. That news is true. Many warriors, after recovering from their shock, turned their gazes to Yi Guqian in unison. Even an idiot knew that Su Jianshi didn't obtain this 5th grade beast core by herself. This Dugu Wubai really killed a 5th grade blood demon. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even the people from the 7 major factions were shocked. Especially those who doubted Yi Guqian's results. They felt as if they had been slapped in the face, and their cheeks burned with pain. How is this possible? That's a 5th grade beast. How did he kill it? Lu Tianxin jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Heaven's pride, a true heaven's pride. Even if he didn't kill a 5th grade beast in its peak state, it's still shocking enough. Zhao Jingting slapped the armrest, and a trace of excitement appeared on his face. How could such a talent not enter the limitless sword sect? Many people were shocked. This Dugu Wubai had toppled their imaginations time and time again. As for Xia Yubing, although she didn't lose her composure, her jade-like face had long since lost its smile. Dark clouds gathered between her brows. She looked at Yi Gu Chen with her icy blue eyes. There was a hint of surprise in her eyes. Even in a weakened state, Xia Yubing knew that she wouldn't have a chance of victory against a 5th-grade blood demon unless she used all her trump cards. However, Yi Gu Chen had directly killed him. Su Jianshi, Dugu Wubai. Xia Yubing softly murmured as a chill condensed in her blue eyes. Yi Gu Chen remained indifferent in the face of everyone's astonishment and disbelief. He did not care about these false reputations. However, he felt an extreme killing intent coming from Qin Baijian and the other two in the air. It was obvious that Qin Baijian, Mo Yunzi, and the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master's killing intent towards Yi Gu Chen had grown even stronger after witnessing Yi Gu Chen's ability to kill a rank 5 blood demon. The 3 Spirit Bridge of Heaven and Earth experts looked at each other and had a tacit understanding. Such a genius with limitless potential could not be left alive. He had to be nipped in the bud. Otherwise, when he grew up in the future, it would be a fatal blow to the 3 major forces. Yi Gu Chen turned a blind eye to this murderous aura. In the end, Su Jianshi took first place in the second stage with a score of 1,030 points. This attracted a lot of attention. Xia Yubing's face was cold as she took second place. She was slightly dimmer than Su Jianshi. As for Yi Gu Chen, he was in the top 10, but he did not care. Everyone, the top 500 have been chosen. You may participate in the 3rd stage. The 3rd stage can be described as simple, but it can also be difficult. The old man that presided over the meeting smiled mysteriously, and then he said, the 3rd stage is called the Elite Arena Guardian Battle. At that time, the elite disciples of the 7 great powers will be the guardians of the arena. All of you only have to persist for 15 minutes against them to pass. Many cultivators frowned when they heard the old man's words. The 3rd stage seemed similar to the 1st stage's puppet battle, but it was different in nature. Puppets were inanimate objects. Although their physical strength was strong, they could not think or use martial arts. However, the elite disciples of the 7 great forces were all true geniuses. Their strength and methods were all extraordinary. To a certain extent, they were even more difficult to deal with than Divine Soul Realm puppets. It wasn't easy to last 15 minutes against the elite disciples of the 7 major forces. Alright, the elite arena battle will be held in 7 days outside the Black Sky Mountain Range. You can recuperate within these 7 days. Following the old man's words, some cultivators sat down cross-legged and began to recuperate. After all, there were many injured cultivators in the Black Sky Mountain Range. You still need to recuperate. Yi Gu Chen took out all kinds of healing pills. Su Jianshi glanced at Yi Gu Chen from the corner of her eyes. She chuckled and took out a higher-grade pill. Yi Gu Chen's expression froze. He had forgotten about Su Jianshi's mysterious background. After all, she was someone who could casually take out celestial chalcedony. During these 7 days, Yi Gu Chen and Su Jianshi were also adjusting their conditions. Yi Gu Chen was doing well. His recovery was strong and his blood was abundant. His injuries from the battle were mostly healed. Su Jianshi was slightly worse. However, with the help of many pills and spiritual herbs, as well as Yi Gu Chen's true qi, her injuries were mostly healed. You haven't fully recovered. Can you pass the next stage? Yi Gu Chen frowned slightly. Don't you trust me? I'm the sword fairy, heroine Su. Ouch! Su Jianshi put her hands on her hips. Before she could finish her sentence, she pulled on her wounds and cried out in pain. Yi Gu Chen smiled faintly and shook his head. There was no lack of fun with Su Jianshi. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Outside the Black Sky Mountain Range, 7 high platforms were built to represent the 7 major forces. During these few days, many disciples of the 7 major forces had come. The geniuses of the 7 major forces all had disdainful gazes and extraordinary auras. They looked at the participating cultivators as if they were ants. Only geniuses like Xia Yubing, Yuan Mia, and Shintu Miao were worthy of their attention. 7 days are almost up. Why aren't the disciples of the Limitless Sword Sect's Sun Moon Hall here? On the spectator's stand, the charming lady from the Consonance Palace smiled and asked Xiao Jingting. The Sun Moon Hall was the gathering place of the Limitless Sword Sect's elite disciples. It was similar to the inner courtyard of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest and the Heavenly Saber ranking of the Saber-conferred Monarch Palace. None of the brats from the Sun Moon Hall are willing to come. They're all trying to shirk their responsibilities. There aren't many opponents that can catch their attention, Xiao Jingting said indifferently. The moment he said that, the other 6 major forces' faces turned ugly. Didn't that mean that their elite disciples were inferior to the disciples of the Sun Moon Hall? However, the truth was as such. The disciples of the Limitless Sword Sect's Sun Moon Hall were indeed the strongest defenders of the 3rd stage. I reckon that it'll be difficult for any genius to pass this stage. The other forces thought in their hearts. Xian Hao, who was famous in the entire Saint Origin dynasty, was the most dazzling genius of the Sun Moon Hall. Chapter 157. Everyone, 7 days have passed. The Elite Arena Defense Battle will officially begin. Every participant will draw lots. Whichever faction they draw, they will challenge that faction's arena, the host announced loudly. The 500 martial artists who passed began to discuss. Please don't draw the Limitless Sword Sect. I heard that the Sun Moon Hall's disciples are the strongest. Xian Hao, who left his name on the sword seeking steel, is one of the best. That's right. No one can draw the Limitless Sword Sect. However, the Saber-conferred Monarch Palace isn't having it easy either. The disciples on the Heavenly Saber list are all abnormally strong. The Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's inner sect seems to be having a better time than the other factions. Yi Guqian listened to the discussions of many warriors, and his complexion became somewhat strange. It sounded like the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's inner sect was weaker than the other factions. On the spectator stand, Elder Qing He's expression didn't look good either. He turned to Chu Qingqi and said, Qingqi, don't go easy this time. Otherwise, people will say that the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's inner sect isn't as good as the Sun Moon Hall and the Heavenly Saber list. Yes, disciple obeys. Chu Qingqi nodded slightly. Soon, the drawing of lots began. Yi Guqian and Su Jianshi lined up. Su Jianshi drew a jade stick with a flower engraved on it. This is the Consonance Divine Palace's jade stick. Wait for the challenge, the invigilator said. The surrounding martial artists looked at them with envy. The Consonance Divine Palace was full of women. Most of them were easygoing and gentle. Unless their strength was too weak, they would be able to last 15 minutes against them. Looks like my luck is pretty good. Su Jianshi smiled proudly, revealing her sparkling teeth. Yi Guqian also stepped forward and took out a jade stick. There was a picture of the sun and the moon carved on it. Yi Guqian frowned slightly. He didn't need the invigilator to tell him that it was the symbol of the Limitless Sword Sect. Dugu Wubai, go to the Limitless Sword Sect's arena and wait. The invigilator's tone was a little regretful. After all, Yi Guqian's opponent was the Sun Moon Hall's disciple, who was known as the strongest arena defender. Are you okay? Su Jianshi looked at him with worry. It's fine. Yi Guqian waved his hand nonchalantly. Actually, he also wanted to meet the disciples of the Limitless Sword Sect's Sun Moon Hall. Xian Hao, who had left his name on the sword seeking steel, was the top prodigy of the Sun Moon Hall. I wonder if the one who came to guard the arena would be Xian Hao. Yi Guqian was also very curious. As time passed, the elite arena guard battle was in full swing. As expected, the guardian of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest was Chu Qingqi. Yi Guqian had a good impression of Chu Qingqi. He watched Chu Qingqi make a move. The emerald sword Qi swept out, and it was obviously more powerful than it had been at the sword-seeking steel. Chu Qingqi's cultivation is already half a step into the divine soul realm. No wonder he's an elite disciple of the inner yard. Yi Guqin was secretly shocked. Chu Qingqi was very young, but he was already a half-step divine soul expert. Boom! Accompanied by the rumbling of the sword Qi, the challenger was directly blasted out of the arena. Chu Qingqi of the Sword Sex Pagoda Forest is too powerful. This is already the 7th challenger in a row. Many warriors were shocked. Some warriors who had looked down on the inner yard of the Sword Sex Pagoda Forest secretly complained. Yi Guqin also chuckled. He didn't care. Not long after, Su Jianchu's battle also began. However, Yi Guqin was a little stunned when he saw that kind of battle. The female guardian of the Consonance Palace was actually casually fighting with Su Jianchu while chatting. Is this the legendary verbal battle? Many warriors were dumbfounded. Hee, so little sister Su Jianchu, are you interested in joining our Consonance Palace? We're all sisters. The beautiful woman from Consonance Palace smiled gently at Su Jianchu. With Su Jianchu's potential and talent, they couldn't wait to recruit her. How could they blast her out of the arena? In the end, Su Jianchu and the woman happily chatted for 15 minutes before jumping out of the arena. Su Jianchu winked at Yi Guqin. She seemed very relaxed. Finally, it was Yi Guqin's turn. However, the Sun Moon Hall's disciples hadn't arrived yet. The guardian of the arena was an old acquaintance of Yi Guqin. It was Lu Tianying. Although Lu Tianying hadn't entered the Sun Moon Hall, his strength was enough to stop a large number of challengers. Of course, the premise was that they didn't encounter Xia Yubing, Yuan Mia, and the others. As Yi Guqin walked up the arena, Lu Tianying's expression turned ugly. He had clearly seen Yi Guqin's performance in the Black Sky Mountain Range through the void light screen. Although Lu Tianying's cultivation had reached half-step divine soul, he still wasn't confident that he could defeat Yi Guqin. However, the anger in Lu Tianying's heart caused him to look at Yi Guqin with an extremely cold gaze. It was because of Yi Guqin that he was insulted by Zhao Jingting. Dugu Wubai, I admit that you're strong, but you won't be able to pass this stage. Lu Tianying's tone was cold and his gaze was frosty. The reason why he could say such words was because his cultivation was higher than Yi Guqin's. Secondly, he believed that Yi Guqin wouldn't be able to recover so easily from the injuries he suffered in the previous battle. However, Lu Tianying didn't know that Yi Guqin had the perfect physique and his recovery was terrifying. Do you only know how to talk nonsense? Yi Guqin's hand flashed and the falling star flexible sword appeared in his hand. What a sharp-tongued brat. Lu Tianying's expression was cold as he stepped forward. His figure was as unpredictable as the wind. This was the limitless sword sex movement technique, the 9 revolution wind cloud steps. Competing in movement techniques? Yi Guqin smiled faintly and stepped on the 64 hexagrams of the Book of Changes. His figure suddenly became like smoke and mist, like a swan riding the waves. It was the wave-like subtle steps. The two figures were blurry and sword lights overlapped. For a moment, it was hard to tell who was stronger. Where did this Dugu Wubai get such an exquisite movement technique? Many warriors were surprised, including the 7 major forces. Movement techniques were relatively rare and most of them were very ordinary. For example, the 9 revolutions wind cloud steps of the limitless sword sect was already a top-notch movement technique. However, Yi Guqin's movement technique was obviously more exquisite than the 9 revolutions wind cloud steps. How could these people know the wonders of martial arts in Jianghu? God-slaying sword technique, blood slaughter. Yi Guqin's sword cut through the air and a blood-colored sword light pierced through the air. Feeling the terrifying murderous aura, Lu Tianying's expression changed slightly. His half-step divine soul strength completely erupted. At the same time, he held a long sword and performed an ultimate move. Rainbow sword technique, sun piercing. The rainbow sword technique was a powerful spirit-grade sword technique of the limitless sword sect. Lu Tianying performed it with his half-step divine soul strength. The sword chi was like a rainbow piercing through the sky. Its power was not weak either. Clang! The two collided and were actually neck and neck. I'm half-step divine soul, and he's only at the 8 revolutions chi refinement. As the sword chi cleansed the air, Lu Tianying's figure retreated. At the same time, his eyes were filled with astonishment. Again. Ye Guqin did not give Lu Tianying a chance. What he wanted to do was not to hold on for a quarter of an hour, but to knock Lu Tianying off the stage. God-slaying sword technique, demon only. Ye Guqin's sword chi pierced through the sky and a blood-colored murderous aura erupted. Ye Guqin not only activated the power of Azura, but also faintly activated a trace of Azura's sword intent. Boom! The sword swept out like a blood-colored sword. The biting cold murderous aura shook the surroundings. Rainbow sword technique, sun chasing. Lu Tianying's eyes were filled with horror. At this moment, he felt that Ye Guqin was like an Azura in the sword. The powerful sword chi fluctuations made his face twitch and he was shocked. Whoosh! A rainbow of sword chi burst out and collided with Ye Guqin's sword. However, the result was, Puchi. The rainbow of sword chi was easily torn apart by Ye Guqin's blood-colored sword. Then, the sword slashed across Lu Tianying's shoulder, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Lu Tianying spat out blood and fell off the stage in a sorry state. Dead silence, all the cultivators, including the people from the 7 major forces, were stunned. They had only seen the arena defender knock the challenger off the stage. This was the first time they had seen the arena defender being knocked off the stage. Lu Tianying collapsed on the ground. He struggled to get up. His face was covered in dirt and there was a large bloody wound on his shoulder. It was so deep that the bone could be seen. Feeling the strange, contemptuous, and mocking gazes around him, he spat out another mouthful of blood. Lu Tianying, you're only a so-so. On the stage, Ye Guqin stood tall. Although his face was ordinary, he had his own charisma. On the spectators' stand, Zhao Jingting frowned. Although he wanted to rope in Ye Guqin, the fact that Ye Guqin had embarrassed Lu Tianying in front of so many people would make the limitless sword sect lose face. However, just as everyone was discussing this matter, a cold and arrogant voice came from afar. What an arrogant brat! Do you think you can humiliate my limitless sword sect's disciple? Hearing this voice, all the cultivators' faces changed. Was the limitless sword sect's Sun Moon Hall's disciple finally here? Chapter 158. The limitless sword sect was the leader of the 7 superpowers. The disciples of the Sun Moon Hall were the elites of the limitless sword sect. Every disciple who entered the Sun Moon Hall would be given the surname Xian. For example, Xian Hao was the most outstanding genius of the Sun Moon Hall. It could be seen that the Sun Moon Hall was highly valued. It could be said that anyone who could enter the Sun Moon Hall would be considered as one of the top geniuses in the Saint Origin dynasty. That cold voice came from afar, causing everyone to cast their gazes in that direction. Could it be Xian Hao? Many people were curious. Xian Hao was almost the top of the younger generation in the Saint Origin dynasty. After all, he was a genius who could leave his name on the sword-seeking steel. A figure came from afar. Although he was not a spirit bridge expert, he could fly at a low altitude with the help of the sword-controlling technique of the limitless sword sect. It was a young man in black. His eyes were like lightning and his aura was cold. He carried a long sword on his back and there was a sun and moon pattern unique to the limitless sword sect on his chest. It's Xianing. Some warriors who knew him said. Xianing. Ye Guqin frowned. He also vaguely knew this person. Although this Xianing was not as prominent as Xian Hao, he was also a famous genius. He was one of the geniuses in the Sun Moon Hall, second only to Xian Hao. It's Xianing. TSK, those who got the Limitless Sword sect are in trouble. Xian Ying is one of the top in the Sun Moon Hall. He's very powerful. Some warriors who got the Limitless Sword sect's name turned green and complained incessantly. Xian Ying's figure was like a black eagle as he landed on the arena. His aura was cold and vigorous. The soul fluctuation that was faintly emitted made Yiguchen's face turn serious. Divine Soul Realm. Xian Ying had obviously reached the Divine Soul Realm, unlike Lu Tianying and Chu Qingqi, who were only half a step away from the Divine Soul Realm. Reaching the Divine Soul Realm at such a young age, the Sun Moon Hall is indeed extraordinary. Yiguchen thought to himself. When Xian Ying released his soul energy, the surrounding martial artists were shocked. Zhao Jingting, looks like your Limitless Sword sect doesn't want to let a single martial artist pass this time. Elder Qing, he said indifferently. This Xian Ying isn't the strongest in my Sun Moon Hall. If he can't even last 15 minutes against Xian Ying, then how can he be considered a genius? Zhao Jingting replied with a cold smile. Senior brother Xian Ying, since you're here, you must help me teach that Dugu Wubai a lesson. Seeing Xian Ying's arrival, Lu Tianying felt as though he had found a life-saving straw. You've embarrassed the Limitless Sword sect. However, it's time to teach that brat a lesson. Xian Ying's gaze was indifferent, as if he was saying something natural. Hearing Xian Ying's cold voice, Yiguchen laughed. Perhaps you have misunderstood. Since I have already defeated Lu Tianying, I have already passed the third stage. Why would I need to fight you again? Yiguchen said. Hearing Yiguchen's words, all the martial artists began to discuss among themselves. They believed that Yiguchen was afraid of Xian Ying. However, some of the martial artists asked themselves. If they were in Xian Ying's shoes, they would also have to submit to him. Su Jianshi, on the other hand, was relieved. She was afraid that Yiguchen would fight Xian Ying without thinking. One had to know that there was a huge gap between the Qi Refinement Realm and the Divine Soul Realm. Oh, you're afraid? Xian Ying said with a mocking smile. Yiguchen remained unmoved. Dugu Wubai, you're just a coward who bullies the weak and fears the strong. What? Senior brother Xian Ying has arrived and you're already silent. Where's your pride? Where's your backbone? Lu Tianying's mouth was like a machine gun. Say another word. Yiguchen was annoyed. His black eyes were suddenly swallowed by blood as he coldly looked at Lu Tianying. Don't you dare say another word. Lu Tianying's face flushed red when he saw those azure eyes. He was instantly silenced. It was as if a pair of hands were tightly gripping his neck. He didn't dare to say another word. Did I say I wanted to avoid the battle? Yiguchen held the meteor soft sword in his hand and said indifferently. As soon as he said this, it caused an uproar in the surroundings. Even Zhao Jingting and Elder Qing he were surprised. They didn't understand where Yiguchen's courage came from. Sigh, this stupid kid is really. Su Jianshi gritted her teeth and stomped her feet in anger. Then accept the challenge. Xian Ying's eyes revealed a dangerous glint. I can accept the challenge, but it's a little boring without a bet. How about this? You're a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall, so you should have the Void Sword art, right? Yiguchen smiled faintly. The Void Sword wave that he practiced was a remnant of the Void Sword art. So Yiguchen had always wanted to obtain the complete Void Sword art. This. You actually want the Void Sword art? Xian Ying frowned slightly. Everyone could see that Yiguchen wasn't showing weakness earlier. He just wanted the Void Sword art of the Limitless Sword sect. The Void Sword art was a superior spiritual tier sword art. Even in the Limitless Sword sect, only disciples of the Sun Moon Hall could learn it. Even Lu Tianying wasn't qualified. What qualifications do you have to make a bet with me? Xian Ying sneered. I also have a spiritual tier sword art, the God-slaying sword art. You can tell its power from Lu Tianying's miserable state, Yiguchen said. Hearing those words, Lu Tianying was so enraged that he fainted. A trace of greed flashed across Xian Ying's pitch-black eyes. Although he was a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall, he still had to pay a high price to obtain a spiritual tier sword art. Alright, since you're giving me a spiritual tier sword art, how can I not want it? There's no need for 15 minutes. As long as you can last for 10 breaths of time, you win. Xian Ying's confidence came from his own strength. There was a huge gap between the Divine Soul Realm and the Qi Refining Realm. Moreover, as a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall, his various sword arts were extraordinary. So he didn't think that he would lose to Yi Guqin. TSK, as expected of a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall. He's really domineering. Many warriors sighed. Yi Guqin's Duga Wubai was the real dark horse in this elite gathering. He was an existence that was on par with Qi Naoshi and the others. Xianing actually said that he couldn't last for 10 breaths of time. It was also very domineering. Words are no proof. Let's fight. Yi Guqin's meteorite soft sword buzzed and trembled. A touch of blood spread along the blade. Xian Ying's face was relaxed. He looked at Yi Guqin as if he was looking at an ant. In his opinion, anyone below the Divine Soul Realm was an ant. I'll let you know the gap between the Qi Refining Realm and the Divine Soul Realm. Xian Ying took a step forward. An invisible wave spread out like a ripple. Feeling the pressure on the soul level, the faces of all the warriors watching the battle changed dramatically. Yi Guqin's face also turned slightly cold. Every transformation of the Divine Soul Realm would make a huge leap in soul power. Although Xianing was only an expert at the first transformation of the Divine Soul Realm, his soul power was not weak. It seems that I can finish you in one move, Xianing smiled coldly as he looked at Yi Guqin, who was trembling under his soul pressure. Rainbow Sword Art, Sun Slashing. Xianing swung his sword. An awe-inspiring sword aura pierced through the air toward Yi Guqin. Chapter 159. Although Xianing had performed the same rainbow sword technique as Lu Tianying, Xian Ying's long rainbow sword technique was different. Their power couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. The sword energy on Xian Ying's sword was as strong as the sun. It seemed to have materialized as it slashed towards Yi Guqin's head. Condensed true energy. Many martial artists trembled. Condensed true energy was the hallmark of a Divine Soul Realm expert. They could control and condense true energy with their soul power and even turn it into a tangible weapon. It was rumored that experts in the 7th transformation of the Divine Soul Realm and above could condense true energy into all kinds of weapons. Xianing was only in the 1st transformation of the Divine Soul Realm, so he couldn't reach that level. However, he could still condense true energy to a near-tangible level and its power was boundless. God-slaying sword technique, solitary demon. Facing the attack of a Divine Soul Realm expert, Yi Guqin didn't dare to underestimate it. He immediately used the second move of the God-slaying sword technique. With the support of the Shura power and the Shura sword intent, the power of solitary demon was earth-shattering. Yi Guqin's black hair was flying in the wind. His eyes were filled with disdain. His eyes were swallowed by the color of blood. They were like 2 blood moons, carrying with them a murderous aura that made people shudder. Soul suppression. At the same time, Xian Ying's lips curled into a cold smile. At the same time, a wave of soul pressure pressed down on Yi Guqin. You want to suppress me with just soul suppression? Yi Guqin's expression was equally cold. Eye of Shura, activate. Although Yi Guqin hadn't reached the Divine Soul Realm, there was also a mysterious blood-red fluctuation spreading out. Looking at the Eye of Shura, Xianing suddenly felt countless Shura illusions coming to disturb his mind. How is this possible? How can a Qi Refining Realm's illusions affect me? Xianing was astonished. The power of his sword couldn't help but weaken. Boom! When the two collided, it was as if a huge star had exploded. Powerful ripples of sword energy swept across the entire arena. Fortunately, the arena was engraved with a sturdy array. Otherwise, the arena would have been destroyed. Guqi. Yi Guqian's figure retreated rapidly amidst the smoke and dust of the sword qi. He also spat out a mouthful of blood. Xian Ying's condensed sword qi hit him directly. On the other hand, Xian Ying had also taken a few steps back and there was a trace of blood on his face. You actually injured me? Xian Ying seemed to be in disbelief as he wiped away the trace of blood on his face with his finger. All the martial artists below the stage were silent. This was an unequal battle, but the result was shocking. 5 breaths of time left. Yi Guqian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. You're courting death. The veins on Xian Ying's forehead bulged as he attacked again with his sword. The first style of the limitless sword arts, Shadowless Sword. Xian Ying sheathed his sword, then pulled it out abruptly and slashed across the sky. It's the limitless sword art of the limitless sword sect. Many cultivators cried out involuntarily. The eyes of the people from the 7 major forces also narrowed. The limitless sword art was the most famous sword art of the limitless sword sect. It was rumored that the first few styles were comparable to the spiritual level sword arts, and the later styles were even more powerful. In the end, they were not weaker than the king-level sword arts. The shadowless sword that Xian Ying had just displayed was the first style of the limitless sword art. Swoosh! Like an afterimage, Xian Ying's sword was as fast as lightning, causing the air to emit a sharp whistle. Yi Guqian frowned as he felt an extreme sense of danger. With a clang, the power of ice and fire flowed on the surface of his body. In an instant, the ice and fire dragon crystal armor covered his body. His genuine qi flowed along the veins in his arms, and a powerful aura shot out from Yi Guqian's fingertips. 6 Pulse Divine Sword. Rays of aura shot out from Yi Guqian's fingertips, and it was as if more than 10 rays of sword light had shot out at the same time. They collided with the deadly sword shadow. Boom! 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 Continuous explosions rang out. Yi Guqian's expression turned serious, and Xian Ying's sword was already in front of him. Yi Guqian stabbed out with the meteorite soft sword in his hand. The blood-red sword light pierced through the air and collided with Xian Ying's sword once again. However, this attack shocked Yi Guqian. An extremely sharp sword qi shot out and hit the ice and fire dragon crystal armor on Yi Guqian's chest. Puff! Yi Guqian spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, his sword grazed Xian Ying's arm, causing blood to spurt out. 3 breaths of time left. Yi Guqian's blood-red eyes were filled with stubbornness. The swords collided, and sparks flew. Many martial artists were dazzled by this scene. I'll finish you with one stroke. Yi Guqian's strength and the ice and fire dragon crystal armor had exceeded Xian Ying's expectations. He knew that if he did not use his ultimate move, he would suffer a great loss. The second move of the limitless sword art, Endless Sword. Xian Ying's true qi surged. His soul power spread out and condensed all his true qi on the tip of his sword. The limitless sword art was a sword art that was extremely difficult to cultivate. Even Xian Ying had only cultivated the first 2 moves. Among the younger generation of the limitless sword sect, only Xian Hao had mastered the limitless sword art. Swoosh! Xian Ying struck out with his sword. The sword qi pierced through the heavens and split the earth. It was endless like a raging tide. The sword qi undulations even made some of the Sky Pride's eyes twitch slightly. The power of the limitless sword art was terrifying. Feeling the terrifying power of the limitless sword, Yi Guqian's brows were extremely solemn. Under the circumstances of not exposing his identity, it was already difficult to withstand the shadowless sword, let alone the second move. However, would Yi Guqian give up? Heh! If that's the case, Yi Guqian's pair of blood-red eyes seemed to darken a little. Vaguely, there seemed to be an extremely powerful blood aura around Yi Guqian's body. At this moment, time seemed to slow down. Looking at the endless sword chi tearing through the air, Yiguchin struck out with his sword. The third move of the god-slaying sword art, Yellow Spring. With one sword, the heavens and earth were destroyed. A sword light formed entirely from the blood light and Azura power tore through the heavens and earth. It was like a river of blood, colliding with Xian Ying's limitless sword chi. At the most critical moment, Yiguchin finally activated all the Azura power in his body and displayed the third move of the god-slaying sword art. The sword shocked the heavens and earth, a sword into the Yellow Spring. Rumble. The boundless sword chi was actually split apart by Yiguchin's sword. This is impossible. Xian Ying's face changed drastically. He was extremely confident in his move. The second move of the limitless sword art was not weaker than some of the mid-grade spiritual sword arts. He did not expect Yiguchin to have such a trick up his sleeve. Puchi. Although Yiguchin's sword broke the limitless sword chi, the terrifying impact still hit Yiguchin's body. Even with the protection of the ice and fire dragon crystal armor, Yiguchin's face paled. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. He gripped the meteor soft sword tightly and stabbed it into the ground, all the way to the edge of the stage. Xianing was also hit by the Yellow Spring sword. He blocked with his sword, but he was still forced back a dozen steps. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, but he swallowed it down. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Yiguchin. The youth who was holding the meteor soft sword was half kneeling on the ground because of his injuries. Although the corner of his mouth and chin were covered in blood, his eyes contained a cold stubbornness. 10 breaths have passed. Chapter 160. When Yiguchin said that 10 breaths had passed, Xian Ying's face darkened. This time, Xianing had dug a hole and jumped into it himself. He had underestimated Yiguchin's strength. Since you're so strong, why are you still a nobody? You're just pretending to be weak. Xian Ying's words were practically squeezed out from between his teeth. It was obvious that he had fallen into Yiguchin's trap to obtain the void sword technique. But now, under the watchful eyes of everyone, how could he go back on his words as a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall? Please fulfill your end of the bet. Yiguchin stood up. The blood in his body roared as he began to heal his injuries. The corners of Xian Ying's eyes twitched. Everyone's gazes made him feel uneasy. After a long while, Xian Ying's face darkened as he tossed a jade slip from his origin ring. Yiguchin reached out and took it. He immediately examined it and compared it with the vacuum sword wave in his body. It was indeed the void sword technique. Thank you for the gift. Yiguchin smiled faintly and cupped his fists at Xianing. Humph. Xianing flung his sleeves. He didn't want to look at Yiguchin anymore. Of course, he wouldn't let Yiguchin off so easily. When Yiguchin got off the stage, Su Jianshi hurried forward and handed him the elixir. The way the crowd looked at Yiguchin changed again. Xianing was an expert in the Divine Soul realm. Even though he was in the first transformation realm, there was still a huge gap between him and the Qi refinement realm. However, Yiguchin managed to resist for 10 breaths of time and even managed to injure Xianing. Yiguchin knew in his heart that his victory this time was actually due to luck. The main reason was that Xianing had underestimated him and said that he would take him down within 10 breaths. If it had been 15 minutes, Yiguchin wouldn't have been able to hold on if he hadn't used all his skills. After Yiguchin, a few other outstanding prodigies had appeared. For example, Yuan Mia, who had also left his name on the sword seeking steel, had done the same thing as Yiguchin and directly blasted an elite disciple of the Nine Profound sect off the arena. This had attracted a lot of attention. And Yiguchin also clearly felt that Yuan Mia did indeed possess sword intent. But he did not reveal it, so Yiguchin did not know what sword essence Yuan Mia had comprehended. In addition, Qi Naoshi, Murong Ditian, Shintu Miao and the others had also easily passed through the third stage. However, what Yiguchin paid the most attention to was still Xia Yubing. The arena she was in was 3 imperial palaces. The three imperial palaces were also vaguely at the forefront of the seven great factions. Therefore, the geniuses of the three imperial palaces were not weak either. However, in Xia Yubing's hands, that heavenly pride of the three imperial palaces actually couldn't even last a quarter of an hour before being frozen by the chilliness formed by the sword aura. This kind of result seemed to have been reversed. Xia Yubing was the one defending the stage. This kind of situation was out of everyone's expectations. Yi Guqin's expression was very serious. Xia Yubing's comprehension of the sword essence of ice had exceeded his expectations. Could it be that Xia Yubing has already touched the threshold of that level? Yi Guqin thought to himself. The so-called level was naturally the realm after sword intent, the way of the sword. Sword intent, way of the sword. Although there was only a difference of one word, they were two completely different realms. Yi Guqin, who had comprehended four types of way of the sword, naturally knew how powerful it was. Looks like I still need to increase my strength, Yi Guqin thought to himself. What he needed to do the most now was to quickly master the indestructible body of Vajra, thoroughly comprehend the hard-soft sword intent, and cultivate the void sword technique. Finally, after 2 days, the elite arena defending battle also ended. Out of the last 500 people, only 150 people successfully passed the stage and entered the final round. From the tens of thousands of cultivators to only 150 people in the end, it could be seen how strict the 10 prefectures' elite assembly's examination was. However, only those heavenly prides that passed through the various stages of selection would be truly valued by the 7 major forces and be nurtured with resources. Everyone, being able to pass the 3rd stage has already proved that you are all dragons and phoenixes amongst men. Even in the entire Saint Origin dynasty, your talents are also extraordinary. However, this old man can tell you that in the final stage, your lives may be in danger. Furthermore, no one will come to your rescue. The old man who presided over the competition had a rare serious expression as he spoke with a solemn tone. Hearing this, the expressions of some of the remaining 150 cultivators changed slightly. Therefore, if anyone is afraid now, you can withdraw. However, this old man will say something. In the 4th stage, the true big shots of the 7 major forces will come. The old man's words caused the eyes of some cultivators who were slightly shaken to light up. The big shots of the 7 major forces. Some of the heavenly prides looked at each other with a trace of excitement. If they could really catch the eye of the big shots of the 7 major forces, it would be equivalent to reaching the heavens in a single bound, and they would be able to obtain a lot of resources to nurture them. The old man nodded slightly when he saw that no one withdrew. He opened his mouth and said, "This 4th hurdle can be said to be the most important hurdle in the elite gathering. Those who perform outstandingly will definitely be fought over by the 7 great factions." Hearing this, the crowd was even more curious about the 4th stage's assessment. The location of the 4th stage is located in the Infinite Wasteland. What you need to do is to enter the Infinite Wasteland and search for the cave dwelling of the fallen experts. The old man's words caused an uproar. The Infinite Wasteland was the most dangerous and forbidden area in the Saint Origin dynasty. Not to mention the Qi refining realm cultivators, even the experts who had passed the life and death threshold and spiritual bridge of heaven and earth would be killed if they were to enter the forbidden area. However, the Infinite Wasteland was also one of the most famous treasure grounds. For example, the Sword King's secret realm of the North River Sword King Chu Donglu was discovered in the Infinite Wasteland. It was also the source of Yi Guqin's fall. Yi Guqin didn't expect that the final stage of the assessment would be in the Infinite Wasteland. Whether it was the Sword King's secret realm of the North River Sword King, the mysterious immemorial sword token, or even the incomplete god-slaying sword art, they all came from the Infinite Wasteland. The Infinite Wasteland is said to have thousands of cave dwellings. Although many have been discovered, there are still many left. What you need to do is to find the cave dwelling of an expert and guard it for 3 days. If no other heaven prides can snatch the cave dwelling from your hands within 3 days, it will be your achievement and will be included in your score. If you join any force in the future, the cave dwelling you find will also belong to that force. You can say that if you find the life and death threshold cave dwelling, the 7 major forces won't care about it, but it will be a great opportunity for you. If you find the spiritual bridge cave dwelling, even the 7 major forces will pay attention to you. And if you find the cave dwelling of an expert of the divine dwelling stage who has passed the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth, you will be fought over by the 7 major forces. The old man's words made the blood in the veins of some heaven prides boil. After the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth is the divine dwelling stage. It seems that the North River Sword King is an expert of the divine dwelling stage, Yi Guqian thought. The divine dwelling stage was still too far away from him. But Xia Yubing had obtained the complete inheritance of a sword cultivator of the divine dwelling stage. If I can find a cave dwelling of a divine dwelling stage sword cultivator similar to the North River Sword King, will I be able to completely suppress Xia Yubing? Yi Guqian suddenly thought. This thought made him even more interested in the infinite wasteland plains. Chapter 161. The 4th trial of the Tianhuang Plains was set for a month later. Therefore, Yi Guqian and Su Jianshi temporarily returned to St. Yuan Mansion's Tianzong City. Just as he entered the inn in the city, a petite figure ran over. She had silver-white hair that was as dazzling as the Milky Way and a cute little face that was as cold as snow. Her pair of lustrous eyes seemed to reflect the stars in the sky, mesmerizing anyone who looked at them. It was the little lowly, Shui-er. Big brother. Shui-er cried out and threw herself into Yi Guqian's arms. Yi Guqian's movements were a little clumsy. He wasn't good at dealing with girls, especially someone as clingy as Shui-er. Perhaps it was because Shui-er saw Yi Guqian the moment she opened her eyes, or because Yi Guqian gave her something to eat. Therefore, Shui-er was very dependent on Yi Guqian. However, Yi Guqian was still vigilant towards Shui-er. He didn't think that Shui-er was a simple girl. Shui-er, come and give big sister a hug. Although Yi Guqian wasn't that passionate about Shui, Su Jianshi's maternal love overflowed. She liked this cute little lowly very much. Seeing Su Jianshi and Shui-er playing together, Yi Guqian's lips curved into a faint smile. If Shui-er continued like this, he wouldn't have to worry about anything. The competition in the Tianhuang Plains will be very cruel. There's still a month left. I need to increase my strength again. Yi Guqian's eyes flickered. He knew that the Tianhuang Plains was the place where all grudges would be settled. Whether it was the battle with Qin Aoshi or Xia Yubing, both would eventually erupt in the Tianhuang Plains. Therefore, he needed to increase his strength as much as possible. In a quiet courtyard outside the inn, Yi Guqian stood alone. He was summarizing the various sword arts and martial arts he had learned. The martial arts of the underworld weren't included for the time being. Yi Guqian had learned many sword arts. However, as Yi Guqian's strength increased, those Xiantian sword arts were no longer of much use to Yi Guqian. It was like chicken ribs, tasteless to eat, but a pity to throw it away. With Yi Guqian's understanding of swordsmanship, even the moon-piercing sword art would be able to unleash great power if he cultivated it to the perfection stage. However, Yi Guqian did not have that much time to spend on these sword techniques. Therefore, he needed to make a selection. Yi Guqian now had a total of 4 spirit-level sword arts. The Boundless Heaven sword art was a top-grade spirit-level sword art. Shadow Kill sword art, a spiritual level middle-class sword art. The incomplete version of the God-slaying sword technique was at least comparable to a high-grade spirit-level sword technique. There was also the Void sword technique, a high-grade spiritual level sword art. In addition, he also had the 10,000 Deities Tribulation, a trump card with earth-shattering power. The Boundless Heaven sword art and the Shadow Kill sword art have already reached the basic level and are not too far away from the profound level. The God-slaying sword art has been cultivated for the time being. It would be best if I could find the complete version. As for the Void sword technique, I have the foundation of the Vacuum sword wave, so it should not be too slow to cultivate. Yi Guqian was thinking. What he needed to do now was to cultivate the Void Sword technique, and to cultivate the Boundless Heaven Sword art and the Shadow Kill Sword art to the profound level. As for the Aurora Fast Sword, the Horizontal Lightning Sword, and the Moon-Piercing Sword art, they were not very useful to him and could be abandoned. As for the Golden Snake Sword art, although it was only a Xiantian sword art, it could be used to comprehend the Hard-Soft Sword essence, so it was still necessary. The only thing left was the Tai Chi sword art. The more Yiguchen practiced this sword art, the more mysterious it was. Zhang Sanfeng was worthy of being one of the top 10 peerless masters on par with the sword demon. I have cultivated the Tai Chi sword art to the basic level, so I can temporarily reflect 70% of the power. If I cultivate it to the profound level, I can reflect 100% of the power. Yiguchen thought. The Tai Chi sword art was a rare defensive sword art, so Yiguchen naturally had to continue to cultivate it. After sorting out, Yiguchen also began to cultivate. The vacuum sword wave was a remnant of the Void Sword technique, so Yiguchen did not encounter too many obstacles when cultivating the Void Sword technique. In this way, more than 10 days passed. In the quiet garden, Yiguchen held the meteorite soft sword and swung it. The sword body hummed and trembled, as if it was resonating with the surrounding void. A ripple-like void sword wave spread out. Before Yiguchen used the vacuum sword wave, at most, there were 20 to 30 layers of sword wave. But after obtaining the complete void sword technique, Yiguchen directly broke out 50 to 60 layers of sword wave. Boom! The terrifying vibrating power of the void sword ripple directly shattered a rockery not far away into powder in an instant. But it was not over yet. Again. Buzz! Buzz! The meteorite soft sword kept humming, and dozens of layers of sword wave spread out, superimposing with the previous sword wave. Void sword technique, 100 layers of waves. Yiguchen's sword edge trembled violently, and the 100 layers of sword waves superimposed together, the power was terrible. A gust of wind blew. Around Yiguchen, the rockery, the stone, the wood, and the walls of the courtyard were all silently reduced to dust. It is indeed the complete version of the Void Sword technique. Looking at the dust floating in the sky, Yiguchen smiled slightly. The sword wave generated by the Void Sword technique could ignore most of the defense, so it was very lethal. And Yiguchen's 100 layers of waves was the minor skill of the Void Sword technique. Even Xianing and the others from the Limitless Sword sect would be speechless if word got out that he had cultivated a spiritual level superior sword technique to the minor completion in 10 days. Of course, this was because Yiguchen had the foundation of the vacuum sword wave, sword demon comprehension, and the seed of the sword heart. In the next half a month, Yiguchen had been cultivating the 4 spiritual level sword techniques. Finally, the 1-month time limit was up, and Yiguchen was ready to leave. After a month of recuperation, Su Jianchu's injuries were almost healed, and there was not a trace of a scar left on her delicate body. Big brother, Shui doesn't want to stay here alone. Shui wants to go too. Just as Yiguchen and Su Jianchu were about to leave for the everlasting plains, Shui stubbornly tugged at Yiguchen's sleeve. Su Jianchu's heart was about to melt when she saw Shui's big, bright eyes. Su Jianchu also pleaded, just bring Shui along. When the time comes, just let her stay outside and not enter the everlasting plains. Yiguchen could only helplessly wave his hand when he couldn't withstand the two beauties' longing gazes. Just like that, Yiguchen left Tianzong City with Su Jianchu and Shui and headed for the everlasting plains. The everlasting plains was located in the northern part of the Saint Origin dynasty. It was an extremely vast wilderness. Fortunately, the old man who presided over the meeting had already decided on the location, so Yiguchen and the others went straight to the rendezvous point. Before reaching the rendezvous point, Yiguchen could already see the dense crowd in the distance. There were even more people than the crowd outside the Black Sky Mountain range. It was obvious that the last round of the 10 prefectures elite meeting had attracted a lot of attention. Yiguchen and Su Jianchu's arrival attracted a lot of attention, including Qin Baijian and the other 2 worldly bridge experts. They coldly stared at Yiguchen. In addition, Xianing, Qin Aoshi, Xia Yubing, and the others also looked at Yi Guqin. It looks like the fourth round won't be peaceful. Yi Guqin sighed inwardly. Inside, there was Qin Aoshi, Xia Yubing, and the others. Outside, there was Xianing, Qin Baijian, and the other two worldly bridge experts. It could be said that there was a wolf in front and a tiger behind. Yi Guqin definitely wouldn't be able to escape. However, he wasn't afraid in the slightest. His expression was as calm as ever. Suddenly, several extremely powerful fluctuations swept over from the distance. Their auras were frightening. It's the big shots from the 7 major powers. Yi Guqin raised his brows and glanced over. Chapter 162. In the first 3 stages of the elite meeting, there were only some elite disciples, and at most some elder-level figures. Life and death chamber experts may be the pillars of some super families, but in the 7 great forces, they could only assume the position of an elder. Only heaven and earth spirit bridge experts were the true upper echelons of the 7 great forces. As for the divine dwelling stage experts, they were already the sect master and supreme elder level existences of the 7 great forces. At the 4th stage, those who remained were the true giants among men. Moreover, it was related to the cave-dwelling ruins of the heavenly wasteland plains, so there would be real important figures coming. Yi Guqin focused his gaze. Because he was a sword cultivator, he only cared about the 2 great forces. The Limitless Sword Sect and the Sword Sect Tower. The important figure of the Limitless Sword Sect was standing on a flying sword, dressed in a black and white robe. His eyes were like the sun and moon in the sky, exuding a majestic and powerful aura. It's the Hall Master of the Sun-Moon Hall of the Limitless Sword Sect, Xian Tai. It's Xian Tai. I heard that he has reached the pinnacle of the Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge and is half a step into the Divine Dwelling stage. If he really succeeds, the strength of the Limitless Sword Sect will soar again. Among the 7 great forces, apart from the Limitless Sword Sect, the people of the other forces were whispering to each other. However, the person who came from the Sword Sect Tower made even more people dumbfounded. It's him, wasn't he given to him by the sect master of the Limitless Sword Sect, Xian Wuji? Shoo, keep quiet, don't talk too much. Don't you know that he is the legend of the Sword Sect Tower? Yi Guqin was a little curious and cast his gaze over. The person who came from the Sword Sect Tower was a middle-aged man dressed in plain cotton clothes. He looked very handsome, and his figure was as straight as a sword. The only eye-catching thing was his eyes. Although they looked normal, there was no focus and were very empty. In addition, this person did not have the soul-stirring aura of Xian Tai. He was like an ordinary handsome man. But Yi Guqin's eyes flashed with surprise as he stared at the person. This person gives me the feeling of a brightly lit sword heart. No, it's not just a brightly lit sword heart. There seemed to be a connection between sword cultivators. For example, Yi Guqin could sense that Su Jianxue possessed a brightly lit sword heart. When he saw this man, Yi Guqin also had a vague feeling, but he was not sure. It really is him. The legend of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest, the Lightless Sword King, Feng Manlu. I heard that he was blind since childhood, so he was called the Lightless Sword King. His talent was extraordinary, and he cultivated to the Divine Dwelling stage. Unfortunately, that incident happened in the end. Yi Guqin also revealed a surprised expression when he heard the discussions of some people. Despite being blind, he had managed to cultivate to the Divine Dwelling stage and was even a sword cultivator. Divine Dwelling, Feng 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 Xian Xian, Feng Xian 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 Stage Divine Will, Yi Xian Xian Xian. Just as Yi Guqin felt a stinging pain in his eyes, Feng Manlu turned his head. So powerful. Even Yi Guqin was shocked by the scene just now. Cold sweat broke out on his back. Interesting. Feng Manlu's lips curved in a faint smile as he flew to the Sword Sect Tower's viewing platform. Elder Qing He and Chu Qingqi cupped their hands together. I didn't expect you to come to watch the competition, Feng Manlu, Xian Tai said coldly from the limitless sword sect's side. I've stayed in the sword sect tower for too long, so I have to come out occasionally. Feng Manlu's voice was indifferent. It's a pity that the sword king of a generation is still stuck at the spirit bridge stage. It seems that you won't be able to step into the divine dwelling stage for the rest of your life. Xian Tai mocked as though he was not used to Feng Manlu's indifferent tone. Then I have to thank Xian Wuji. Feng Manlu was still not angry. Seeing that he couldn't provoke Feng Manlu's anger, Xian Tai retracted his cold gaze and said indifferently, your sword sect tower won't be able to obtain a single Heaven Pride sword cultivator in this elite gathering. Whether it's Xia Yubing or Yuan Mia, you won't be able to obtain either. Is that so? Feng Manlu shook his head and smiled. He thought of the aura he had faintly sensed just now. That little guy isn't simple to be able to sense my sword heart, Feng Manlu said inwardly. With the arrival of the important figures from the 7 great forces, the atmosphere was completely ignited. All the participating Heaven Prides wanted to show off their skills in front of these important figures. Everyone, the 4th round of the elite gathering has officially begun. Every participant, please come forward to receive your jade token. The old man presiding over the competition said. Yi Guqin and Su Jianxue both received a few jade tokens, but they didn't know what they were for. Then, the old man took out a bronze mirror and infused it with his true qi. The bronze mirror suddenly rose into the air and expanded in the wind, turning into a huge mirror that was hundreds of feet in length and width. This is a mystical rune divine weapon, the 10,000 miles sky surveying mirror. It can sense the jade pendant that you are carrying. After you find a cave abode, you can crush the jade pendant. The mirror will sense it and display the scene of the cave abode you are in. Under the eyes of the 7 great forces and everyone else, as long as you can hold on for 3 days, it'll be considered a good result. Of course, it's also possible to work together, but the cave abode can only belong to one person, the old man explained. It's a mystical weapon, Yi Guqin thought to himself. Mystical weapons were of a higher level than spiritual inscription weapons. The spiritual inscriptions on mystical weapons could overlap and resonate with each other to form a formation. Its power was even stronger than spiritual inscription weapons. One could imagine how terrifying it would be if one controlled a mystical weapon and casually attacked with the power of a formation. Of course, the 10,000 miles sky survey mirror didn't have any offensive abilities. It only had the ability to manifest. After everything was arranged, Yi Guqin and the other participating Heaven Prides entered the Tianhuang Plains. Just like when they entered the Black Sky Mountain Range, the 150 prodigies entered separately. However, this time, Yi Guqin was careful. He and Su Jianxue carried a communication jade slip so that they could inform each other of their locations. Of course, since the cave abode ruins could only be occupied by one person, it wouldn't be good for Yi Guqin and Su Jianxue to travel together. It would be more efficient to search for the cave abodes separately. The Tianhuang Plains was vast and boundless. A wild and primitive aura permeated the place. It was said that there were thousands of cave abodes in the Tianhuang Plains, but no one knew why so many experts had died here. Even Yi Guqin felt that the Tianhuang Plains was extremely mysterious. The primordial sword token, God-slaying sword art remnant scroll, and so on were all discovered here. The primordial sword token is closely related to the famed primordial swords. If I can find more primordial sword tokens in the plains, I might be able to find some clues about the famed primordial swords. Yi Guqin thought to himself. The 108 famed primordial swords were all supreme weapons with vast power. They were far more powerful than spiritual inscription weapons and mystical inscription weapons. They were items that could only be found by chance. Although Yi Guqin had decided to forge his own famed sword, if he had the chance to obtain a famed primordial sword, he would like to test how powerful it was. Chapter 163. But this matter seemed too far away. Yi Guqin shook his head and decided not to think about it for the time being. But for some reason, as soon as Yiguchen entered the Tianhuang Plains, he vaguely felt that the flow of spirit qi between heaven and earth seemed a little strange. Vaguely, like a vortex, it converged toward the depths of the plains. But this was only a vague feeling. The Tianhuang Plains was originally mysterious and strange. Yiguchen no longer thought about it. What he needed to do now was to find the cave dwelling of an expert. Although the Tianhuang Plains was known to have thousands of cave dwellings, it was still very difficult to find a cave dwelling, especially one above the life and death threshold. Otherwise, the cave dwelling of a divine dwelling expert like the North River Sword King would not be so rare. About half a day later, Yiguchen had been flying at high speed. But the plains were incomparably vast, and it was not possible to find the cave dwelling of an expert in a short period of time. However, at this moment, Yiguchen suddenly saw several black dots in front of him, which seemed to be some people. Yiguchen quietly approached and found that it was 4 or 5 black-clothed men. These black-clothed men had a fierce look, and their cultivation was around the 8th or 9th cycle of the qi refining stage. But they were obviously not disciples of aristocratic families or sects, nor were they heaven prides participating in the competition. Are they the bandits? Yiguchen thought. There were many opportunities in the Tianhuang Plains, and there was naturally no lack of robbers. But given their cultivation of the qi refining stage, they could only operate in the periphery. Suddenly, a man who seemed to be the leader abruptly turned around and looked in Yiguchen's direction. Who is it? Come out. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows slightly. These bandits were indeed people who licked blood from their blades all year round, and their perception was very sharp. Yiguchen casually walked out. Seeing that it was a youngster who came out, the bandit leader breathed a sigh of relief, and then a trace of coldness emerged on his face. Boy, we found a cave, which may be a cave dwelling of an expert. There must be many opportunities inside. Don't you want to go in and explore? The bandit leader asked. You want to use me as a scapegoat to help you find out the situation inside the cave? Yiguchen asked bluntly. The bandits smiled coldly. Brat, you are very smart. However, this is the only way. If you enter, you will have a chance to survive. If you don't, you will immediately lose your life. The bandit leader sneered. Yiguchen was wearing a black robe and was not very eye-catching. He did not emit any aura, so these bandits did not care. Yiguchen smiled and nodded slightly without saying anything. What these bandits discovered was a slanted cave entrance that led underground. It was about the height of a person, and it was pitch black inside. They couldn't see anything clearly. Yiguchen walked in front while the bandits walked behind him. Not long after, the space in front of them suddenly expanded. It was a rather large cave. In the deepest part of the cave, there was a stone platform on which sat a figure who had already passed away. There seemed to be some scattered objects around the figure. It really is a cave dwelling of an expert. The bandits were pleasantly surprised. However, Yiguchen was slightly disappointed because the corpse did not give him a strong sense of pressure. Even after death, an expert with a high cultivation level would still have a residual aura. As for the figure, the aura that was faintly emitted was equivalent to the divine soul realm. It was much stronger than Xianing, but at most, it was around the 7th transformation of the divine soul realm. Ha, there should be some treasures in there. We are rich. Just as the bandits took a few steps forward, a hair-raising hiss suddenly came from the deepest part of the cave. A 2-foot-long black iron-back centipede slithered out. The centipede's densely packed legs were like steel needles, piercing a series of holes in the ground. This is a beast puppet. Yiguchen sensed the aura of the iron-back centipede. It did not have any vitality. It was like a puppet, but this beast puppet was made of the body of a monster beast. Hiss, hiss. The iron-back centipede flew directly toward Yiguchen, and the rest of the bandits retreated. Yiguchen used his wave-like subtle steps. His figure blurred instantly, like smoke or fog. The beast puppet had no intelligence, and it attacked instinctively. Seeing Yiguchen's figure blurring, the iron-back centipede directly turned into a black shadow and attacked the bandits. These bandits did not have the trump cards and skills of the geniuses, and soon died tragically under the iron-back centipede's sickle-like poisonous fangs. Not bad. This beast puppet alone is comparable to an expert in the divine soul realm. Yiguchen did not hesitate. He unsheathed the meteorite soft sword and directly used the void sword technique. Waves of transparent sword wave spread out. No matter how strong the iron-back centipede's defense was, it could not resist the shock force. Void sword technique, 100 waves. Yiguchen's sword buzzed and vibrated. 100 layers of transparent sword wave instantly overlapped, and like a wild wolf, it rushed toward the iron-back centipede. The powerful sword ripples caused the entire rock cave to tremble. The iron-back centipede's body was paralyzed on the ground, and its densely packed steel needle-like legs were all shattered into fine powder. Yiguchen was very satisfied with the power of the void sword technique. After dealing with the iron-back centipede, Yiguchen turned and landed beside the corpse of the expert in the divine soul realm. Because it was only in the divine soul realm, Yiguchen did not intend to crush the jade pendant. At the very least, it would be a life-and-death challenge cave abode that was worth guarding for more than 3 days. Even if this divine soul realm's cave abode was reported, it would only be laughed at by some people. Even so, Yiguchen was not without gains. There were also some things beside the corpse of the divine soul realm expert. A broken and dusty divine weapon with spiritual inscriptions was not attractive to Yiguchen. There was also a yellow-skinned gourd and a piece of jade strip. These were the things that attracted Yiguchen. When he opened the yellow-skinned gourd, the fragrance of elixirs filled the air. Yiguchen looked at it and discovered that it was a translucent elixir. There seemed to be a milky white mist flowing inside the elixir. Faintly, the elixir emitted a soul fluctuation. It's actually a spirit elixir. Yiguchen was slightly surprised. Although he did not know how to refine elixirs, he could still recognize some elixirs. The spirit elixir was an essential elixir for divine soul realm experts. This elixir had the effect of nourishing the soul. After consuming it, it could strengthen the soul force in the sea of consciousness. Although Yiguchen had yet to open his sea of consciousness, his soul force was still present. Furthermore, the spirit elixir could help a cultivator break through to the divine soul realm. This gourd of spirit elixir was not cheap. Yiguchen immediately picked up another piece of jade strip and checked its contents. After a long time, Yiguchen finally finished checking it. What was recorded in the jade slip was a secret technique called soul burning secret technique. There were many secret techniques that had different effects. For example, Yiguchen's soul devouring secret technique could increase one's cultivation in a short period of time. It was a secret technique that could put one's life on the line. As for the soul-burning secret technique, it was a secret technique that could burn one's soul force at a critical moment. It could increase one's soul attack to the extreme. Of course, the soul-burning secret technique had a side effect. It consumed a lot of soul force and caused a lot of damage. If this secret skill of soul ignition is combined with my Eye of Azura, what kind of power will it unleash? Yiguchen thought of this. His Eye of the Azura could cause his enemies to fall into various Azura illusions for a short period of time. If he used the soul-burning secret technique, would he be able to heavily injure his enemies' souls? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.